Chapter 445. Yi Wentao, the owner of the New Dream Renovation Company, was a rich and powerful man. He was the younger brother of the Jindi Group's boss, Yi Wenhe, with a domineering and exceptionally arrogant character. He liked to make friends with people from all walks of life, and had earned a lot of ill-gotten wealth over the years. Who cares if he's really rich or not? Since he came to our door, we must peel off 3 layers of skin from his wallet. Manager Li grinned and said, "That's right, boss. Which of the customers who came to our New Dream Renovation Company didn't end up using our people? If that brat is tactful and gives us a really good project, then we'll be able to make a lot of money." Yi Wentao grinned. He raised his hand to touch his bald head and said, "Take me to see him then. I'm very curious now. What is this big project that he mentioned?" "All right." Manager Li took Yi Wentao to the VIP room on the 2nd floor. They entered the room. Yi Wentao's eyes then fell on Tan Xiao, who was smoking quietly. His thick and short fingers touched his plump belly as he smilingly walked over and said, "You're very young, little brother. I'm the owner of the New Dream Renovation Company, Yi Wentao. How should I address you, little brother?" "Yi Wentao?" A cold light flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes. He pointed to the sofa in front and said, "Let's sit down and talk." Yi Wentao stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help but burst into laughter. After sitting on the sofa in front, he smilingly said, "Little brother, can you answer my question now?" "I don't want to answer your question now," Tan Xiao said lightly, "but I can tell you my background if you can answer a few of my questions first." The smile on Yi Wentao's face quickly faded away. His small eyes narrowed as he stared at Tan Xiao for a few times. Then he slowly said, "Ask away since you have questions. I won't hide anything if I can tell you." "First question. You've killed people with your own hands, haven't you?" Tan Xiao said. "And definitely more than 1 or 2. Yi Wentao abruptly stood up from the sofa with an ominous glint in his eyes as he shouted, "Who the hell are you?" Tan Xiao replied indifferently, "A gentleman keeps his word. You just said that you're willing to answer my question first." Yi Wentao was silent for a moment before he said, "Little brother, you must be joking. I am a serious businessman. Why would I kill anyone?" Tan Xiao nodded and asked again, "I want to know, is your New Dream Renovation Company a business company or a violent gang? A bandit hideout?" Clenching his fists, Yi Wentao turned his head and gave Manager Chen a look. As Manager Chen tacitly understood and left the room, a sneer appeared on his face as he lightly said, "Looks like you're not here to talk business with me, but to smash my place instead. Say it. Which path are you on? You really have no self-control." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "I just asked you 2 questions and you already showed such an expression. Since you want to know which path I'm on, then I'll tell you today. I'm indeed here to smash your place, especially on the path to smash your place." Yi Wentao shot a deep look at Tan Xiao. He suddenly smiled and gave him a thumbs up, praising, "Good, good, good. You're really a young hero. It's been more than a decade since someone came to smash my place. I didn't expect that a reckless hothead would come today. I don't care who you are or what enmity you have with my New Dream Renovation Company. Don't even think about leaving here alive today." "You want to fight?" Tan Xiao mocked. "You really don't want to know why you died?" Yi Wentao raised his brows and said with a faint smile, "Is there any meaning to it?" "There's indeed no meaning to it," said Tan Xiao. "I came here today to avenge someone. If you're a soft persimmon, it'll be boring for me to bully you. I'll give you 2 hours. I hope you can show me your trump card to make me cautious." BM. The VIP lounge's door was pushed open again as 7 or 8 young men in suits and ties quickly came in from the outside. Tan Xiao had seen them in the lobby on the 1st floor before. Each and every one of them was well-dressed and pretended to be courteous. Now, they tore off their disguise and revealed their true ferocious faces. Yi Wentao didn't seem to be in a hurry to deal with Tan Xiao. Instead, he looked at Tan Xiao with a faint smile and said, "Now you should know that I'm not trying to scare you, right? Tell me, what's your background, brat? I hope you can say something powerful and scare me." "I'll tell you since you want to know," said Tan Xiao. "I'm a shareholder of the New World Fitness Center." New World Fitness Center? Yi Wentao turned his head and looked at Manager Li, asking, "Do you know this fitness center?" A chilling light flashed in Manager Li's eyes as he said in a deep voice, "I know this fitness center, boss. It's just that it hasn't opened yet, and hasn't even been renovated yet. Yesterday afternoon, Yang brought his men to beat up the owner of this fitness center, and the renovation workers they hired later. Now it seems that this brat is here to demand an explanation." "You're wrong. I'm here to retaliate." Tan Xiao shook his head. "You're here to retaliate?" Manager Li burst into laughter. "Just by yourself?" Tan Xiao nodded and said, "That's right. Just by myself." Manager Li stepped back and gave the authority to speak to Yi Wentao. Yi Wentao shook his head and a bored expression appeared on his face. He waved and said, "Since you're a moron and want to suffer, then I'll fulfill your wish. I hope you can remember this lesson. Don't come out to act like a pretentious prick if you don't have the strength. Cripple him for me." Immediately, 7 or 8 strong youths rolled up their sleeves and strode toward Tan Xiao. Their fists, which were as big as a casserole, fiercely smashed toward Tan Xiao's head. Tan Xiao didn't rush to stand up. He just stretched his foot and kicked the ankle of the youth in the front, causing him to instantly lose his balance and fall toward Tan Xiao. At the same time, Tan Xiao reached out and grabbed the youth's shoulder. The youth screamed under the tremendous force as Tan Xiao easily threw him up, and used him as a temporary weapon to fiercely sweep the other 3 youths. Bam bam bam. The 3 youths were kicked by the youth in Tan Xiao's hand, and their bodies instantly fell backward. Tan Xiao instantly stood up. After throwing the youth in his hand to the 3 youths, his feet kicked the 3 youths' abdomen. The 3 youths were sent flying backward and nearly fell to the ground kneeling. "Kill him." The other 3 youths' complexions greatly changed upon seeing this. One of them fiercely shouted and waved his fist toward Tan Xiao. "Weak bitches." Tan Xiao glanced at them contemptuously and moved as fast as lightning. His fists were very fast, and the 4 youths only saw a blur in front of their eyes as their chests were hit by his fist. In just an instant, the 4 of them were sent flying backward. They spurted out blood, and directly fell to the ground. 8 people. All of them were knocked down in 10 seconds. Yi Wentao's complexion greatly changed, and a horrified look burst out from his eyes. After retreating a few steps, he pushed Manager Li hard. After Manager Li ran out of the VIP lounge, he pulled out a dagger from his waist and pointed it at Tan Xiao, shouting with a vigilant face, "Brat, you got some skills. But I want to know, you can knock down 8 of them, but can you knock down 80 of them?" Tan Xiao sat back on the sofa and sneered. "Let alone 80 of them, I can knock them down even if there are 800 of them. Don't be afraid. I've just said that I'll give you 2 hours. Within these 2 hours, you'll call all your men over and reveal all your trump cards. Otherwise, I'll torture you and feel that it's not exciting." Yi Wentao gave him a thumbs up and sneered, "You're crazy and arrogant enough. I hope you'll still be able to sit properly like this later. I, Yi Wentao, have been in Shanghai for many years and I've seen a lot of people who are not afraid of death. But there are only a few who are more arrogant than you. You have piqued my interest." Tan Xiao shook his head and lit another cigarette. While smoking, he said, "After today, there will be no more people like you in Shanghai. I don't kill good people, but your hands are stained with a lot of blood, so you'll definitely die unless you agree to my request." Yi Wentao grinned and said, "I've seen your arrogance, brat. You won't get what you want. However, I want to hear what your request is." "No hurry," said Tan Xiao. "I'll tell you when you're at your wit's end." Yi Wentao sneered and put down the dagger in his hand. He took out a cigarette and lit it just like Tan Xiao did. He smoked while waiting. 2 minutes later, more than a dozen youths rushed into the VIP lounge. When they saw their 8 companions lying on the floor, their complexions greatly changed. In an instant, several of them pulled out knives from their waists and pointed their blades at Tan Xiao. As long as Yi Wentao gave the order, they would immediately act. However, Yi Wentao didn't immediately issue the order. Instead, he looked at Tan Xiao and said, "Brat, this place is small. Let's settle it in a bigger place." Tan Xiao stood up. As he strode forward, his toes stepped on a youth's wrist. The crisp sound of bones breaking was heard as the youth's wrist was broken by Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao didn't stop. Under the angry gazes of Yi Wentao and the other youths, he stepped on a youth's wrist with each step. In just a few seconds, the right wrists of 8 youths were all broken. Bastard! You're so ruthless. Yi Wentao angrily said. Ruthless? Tan Xiao sneered. My friend was seriously injured by your people, and is now lying in the hospital. Why didn't you think it was ruthless at that time? I can guarantee that all of you will end up more miserable than them today. I'll even make you regret it for the rest of your life. You shouldn't have provoked my friend. Yi Wentao gasped a few times and shouted fiercely. Tell me, what's your name? At this time, a youth holding a knife in front of Yi Wentao suddenly said aloud. I know him, boss. His name is Tan Xiao, and he's a freshman at Shanghai University this year. I saw a video of him playing the zither and singing 2 days ago. First, I'll present the 3 chapters of Breaking Out for the Alliance Master. There are still 2 more chapters tonight. Then, I still owe 10 chapters of Breaking Out for the Alliance Master. Brothers and sisters, please supervise me. I'll pay off the debt as soon as possible. Seeing that I've been staying up all night, I asked the brothers and sisters to buy tickets. Chapter 446. Shanghai University. A freshman? Yi Wentao suddenly recalled the video he watched 2 days ago. He recalled the person who played and sang in the video and compared him with the Tan Xiao in front of him. He immediately understood why he felt that he was familiar before. It turned out that he had seen his video. I never thought that you'd be so multi-talented. But it's a pity that you won't be able to walk out of my renovation company's door today, said Yi Wentao coldly with a bit of killing intent. Tan Xiao coldly glanced at him and said, You would have been crippled if I hadn't given you some time just now. It's pointless to try to talk fast. Lead the way. Yi Wentao pointed to Tan Xiao, and then turned to walk out of the VIP room's door. The dozens of ferocious-looking youths angrily glared at Tan Xiao. As Tan Xiao stepped out of the door, they also followed him. New Dream Renovation Company's backyard. With a sneer on his face, Yi Wentao stopped in the yard. As more and more men arrived, the number of people surrounding Tan Xiao in the middle had reached more than 30. Most of them were armed with machetes, steel pipes, and other weapons. He was confident that as long as he gave the order, Tan Xiao would be beaten to death. You're Tan Xiao, right? I suddenly have a kind heart now. As long as you kneel and beg me for mercy and break one of your legs and one of your hands, I'll spare your puny life. Of course, compensation is also indispensable. I don't want much. You've injured 8 of my men, so I'll compensate them 10 million each and 80 million as compensation. I'll let this matter go. Tan Xiao slowly raised his arm, stretched out his finger and hooked it at Yi Wentao. Then he indifferently said, Tell your men to come at me. Let's see who's going to die, you or me. Do it. Don't kill him. It doesn't matter if you cripple him or cripple him. Yi Wentao's angry face reappeared as he shouted fiercely. In a flash, more than a dozen men armed with machetes and steel pipes rushed toward Tan Xiao. Almost all of them were very experienced in fighting, and had used the weapons in their hands to beat people. Therefore, they charged towards Tan Xiao with confidence. Tan Xiao's eyes and ears were alert to all directions. It was fine if he didn't make a move, but once he did, it was as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, his fist had already hit the man with the steel pipe at the very front. At the same time, he used his other hand to grab the steel pipe that was lashing at him, and easily snatched it away. Papa! The steel pipe smashed into his head, and blood splattered everywhere. As Tan Xiao waved the steel pipe, the shadow of the steel pipe was like a tiger in a flock of sheep. More than a dozen men besieging him didn't even see Tan Xiao's movements clearly before they were hit by the steel pipe, screaming and falling to the ground. As for Tan Xiao, his footsteps were still moving. Every time his foot landed, a man's foot would be crushed. My God! How is this possible? Damn it, why is he so powerful? I'm not dreaming, right? A dozen of our brothers were killed just like that? It seems that from the start to the end, it was less than half a minute. More than 20 men around who didn't make a move. Their eyes burst with disbelief. Many people saw this scene and couldn't help but exclaim. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. However, the internet celebrity in front of them, Tan Xiao, who seemed to be only in his early 20s, actually had such a powerful skill, which shocked everyone. After all, they had never heard of anyone who could beat more than a dozen people by himself. Changshan Zhao Zilong? Many people suddenly thought of such a sentence. In their opinion, perhaps only Changshan Zhao Zilong in the historical story could do it? Not far away, Yi Wentao looked at Tan Xiu with an incredible face. If Tan Xiu had beaten his 8 men in the VIP room before, he could barely accept it. At this time, 14 or 15 of his men attacked at the same time, and were easily knocked down by Tan Xiu, which made him unable to accept it anymore. It should be known, these 14 or 15 men were much more powerful than the 8 people who had been knocked down before. Among them, 2 or 3 ordinary people were not their match if it was a one-on-one fight. Anhu. Yi Wentao recovered from the shock and immediately shouted loudly. A tall, stocky, middle-aged man walked out from the crowd. He held a steel saber in his hand. Under the sunlight, the steel saber reflected a dazzling light. He was Yi Wentao's most capable fighter. He once knocked down 6 or 7 people without even getting injured. Boss, I may not be able to beat him. Let Little Qing and the others help me. Yi Wentao said in a deep voice. You decide who to help you. No matter what, I don't want him to leave our decoration company alive today. All right. Anhu nodded heavily. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he shouted in a deep voice. Little Qing, Ben, Little Cat, the 3 of you come with me. Immediately, 3 stalwart men came out from the crowd with machetes and steel pipes in their hands. They stared at Tan Xiu with an unfriendly expression. The 4 of them quickly surrounded Tan Xiu. You should be the most powerful thugs under Yi Wentao, right? Seeing you suddenly reminded me of a sentence, Tan Xiu said with a sneer. Anhu's eyes narrowed. His killing intent surged as he coldly asked, What is it? Tan Xiu lightly said, When there is no tiger in the mountain, the monkey becomes the overlord. You soft-footed shrimps don't even have the power to fight back in front of me. Anhu sneered. You'll know if you have the power to fight back or not. After saying that, he strode forward with solid steps. The position he stepped on was very special. In just 2 breaths, he had already appeared in front of Tan Xiu. The more than 1 meter long steel saber slashed down toward Tan Xiu's head. If an ordinary person were to be slashed by this saber, he would probably be split into 2 halves. He moved sideways and dodged. Tan Xiu slid half a meter, and the steel pipe in his hand instantly smashed the back of Anhu's head. As blood splashed, Anhu was directly smashed to death by Tan Xiu. I've killed a lot of people. You're the first to die in my hands. Consider it your blessing. Tan Xiu muttered inwardly. He grabbed Anhu's body and forcefully pulled him to block in front of him. The 2 chopping sabers and the steel pipe smashed by the other big man all fell on Anhu's body. Bam! Tan Xiu smashed Anhu's body on a man with a machete and instantly moved to the front of the other 2 men. The steel pipe smashed the right side of their necks and directly smashed them to the ground. He didn't kill them this time, but his fingers quickly pressed on some acupoints on their bodies. His star force flowed along his fingers into their bodies and destroyed some nerve acupoints on their bodies. He didn't kill them. Instead, they could only spend the rest of their lives lying in bed. This was the best punishment for them. Don't waste time. Let's do it together. Although I won't go on a killing spree today, you damned bastards must be punished. Tang Xiu threw the steel pipe in his hand to the ground, looked around, and then shouted in a stern voice. Yi Wentao swallowed hard, and there was some fear in his eyes. He never thought that Tan Xiu's strength could be so terrifying. Tan Xiu crippled his 4 most powerful fighters in such a short time. Even his most powerful man, Anhu, was directly killed. Oh my God! How could I provoke such a terrifying monster? Yi Wentao wanted to run away, but he calmed himself down when he saw that there were still more than 20 men. He pointed at Tan Xiu and shouted, Go! Kill this bastard! I want him dead! The more than 20 men were shocked by Tan Xiu's strength, and their legs were all trembling. If it weren't for Yi Wentao, they would have dropped their weapons and fled. In their eyes, he was no longer a human. He was simply a fighting machine. One had to know. Anhu had been practicing martial arts since he was a child, and he had a good foundation in martial arts. He was best at Taizu's long fist and Bajikwan. He was also very good at free combat. Even he was killed by this guy in one move. They would be killed in vain if they went up. Moreover, Little Qing was a retired soldier. He joined Yi Wentao because he wanted to kill someone. He hid his identity until now, and was very powerful. For masters, how could they go up against one person at the same time, and be easily killed by him? Yi Wentao looked at the more than 20 men who were frightened, and didn't immediately attack Tan Xiao. The fear on his face turned into anger. He shouted, "Are you all deaf? I told you to do it. Kill him for me. Whoever kills him will be my right-hand man in the future. I'll give him 10 million yuan. 10 million? The fear of these men, who were full of ferocity and hostility, disappeared when they heard Yi Wentao's reward. Many of them were as if they were injected with chicken blood. They stepped forward bravely and rushed towards Tan Xiao like hungry wolves. There will be brave men under a high reward. At this moment, the true meaning of this sentence was perfectly demonstrated. However, no matter how hard they tried, they were still like ants trying to shake a tree in front of a real expert. They were overestimating themselves. Tan Xiao was angry in his heart, so he attacked heavily. Every man who rushed over had a hand or a leg broken by him. In the courtyard, dozens of people curled up on the ground like shrimps, wailing in pain. That scene was heart-wrenching. Disbelief was written all over Yi Wentao's face as he looked at Tang Xiao, who was standing among the crowd. He looked at the miserable appearance of his subordinates and staggered backward. He looked at Tang Xiao for a long time without uttering a word. "Yi Wentao, right? There is still some time left before the time I gave you. If you can call more people, I can wait." Tan Xiao's face was cold as he walked a few steps towards Yi Wentao, and said indifferently. The corner of Yi Wentao's mouth twitched a few times. He used to be so arrogant when talking to others. He didn't expect that he would be forced to this point. "Just you wait." Yi Wentao didn't dare to escape now. He took out his phone, and was ready to call his biggest backer. Chapter 447. At the Jindi Group's HQ. Yi Wenhao was having lunch. Due to business matters, he had been busy until now and could finally catch his breath. However, he was in a very good mood looking at the peach blossom face of his secretary. He had just negotiated a project, and if it was successfully completed, he would have a bountiful harvest. At that time, he would buy some luxurious accessories for this seductive little vixen. He was sure that she would make him feel better and more. Ring, ring, ring. At the table, a mobile phone rang. Yi Wenhao swallowed the food in his mouth and grabbed the phone. He immediately raised his brows and picked up the call asking, "Second brother, is there something you need from me?" "Help me, brother." Yi Wentao's voice came out of the phone. Yi Wenhao looked dazed and immediately put down the chopsticks in his other hand. The smile on his face receded like a tide as he asked in a deep voice, "What's the situation?" "There's a monster coming to my renovation company to make trouble," said Yi Wentao hurriedly. He crippled more than 40 of my men by himself. "Brother, hurry up and bring some people here." Yi Wenhao frowned and said with a displeased face, "Second brother, did you get kicked in the head by a donkey? One person crippled more than 40 of your men? What kind of joke is this? I still have things to do and have no time to mess with you." After saying that, he was about to hang up the phone. Yi Wentao involuntarily cried out, "Brother, you can't just watch me die, can you? Every word I said, was true. I wouldn't have believed such an absurd thing if it were me before. But now it really happened. There's really a guy who crippled more than 40 of my men. He's standing in front of me now. If you don't believe it, I'll tell him to tell you." Yi Wenhao was silent for a moment and coldly said, "Then tell him to answer the phone." 10 seconds later, Tan Xiao took the phone from Yi Wentao and indifferently said, "Your useless brother is right. Bring some people to save him if you don't want him to die earlier. Let me give you a piece of advice. Use everything you've got. Don't get yourself killed when the time comes." After Tan Xiao finished speaking, he directly smashed the phone into pieces, then crossed his arms and looked at Yi Wentao. Yi Wentao took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed the fear in his heart. He looked at Tan Xiao and said, "Tan Xiao, I may have a lot of men under me, but I'm still too far behind compared to my big brother. If you don't want to die, I advise you to leave immediately. Otherwise, you will never be able to leave my place again. Tan Xiu sneered. Do you think I'm scared? After saying that, he took out his mobile phone and dialed Qi Nan's number. After the call was connected, he said, bring some people to New Dream Renovation Company. I killed some people here. And I need you to bring some people to help me deal with the aftermath. Yes, boss. Qi Nan quickly agreed. Tan Xiu put away his mobile phone and looked at Yi Wentao, saying, I originally didn't need to call people to deal with the aftermath, but today's matter is bound to be very big. Hence, I hope your big brother can come to save you quickly. Else, once my men arrive, I won't even need to do anything. The people brought by your big brother will be cleaned up. The fear in Yi Wentao's eyes became more intense. Tan Xiu alone was able to cripple more than 40 of his men. If he still had more men, could his big brother deal with them? No. Yi Wentao suddenly recalled something and the fear on his face immediately disappeared. After his expression eased a lot, he sneered and said, Don't play tricks on me, surname Tang. You're just a freshman at Shanghai University. What the hell do you have? Dealing with the aftermath. Humph, you're just bluffing. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and looked at Yi Wentao's suddenly arrogant expression. A smile appeared on his handsome face as he said, I suddenly changed my mind. You still dare to provoke me recklessly, so I've decided to make you pay some interest first. Didn't other people say that they must share blessings and misfortunes with their men? You should have said the same thing to your men, right? What are you going to do? Yi Wentao subconsciously retreated 2 steps with a panic-stricken look on his face again. What do I want to do? Don't tell me you can't figure it out? Tan Xiu sneered. Tan Xiu, a gentleman's word is as good as a whip. Yi Wentao involuntarily exclaimed. Do you want to go back on your words? Are you still a man if you go back on your words? Whether I'm a man or not, it's not up to you to decide. Tan Xiu sneered. As his voice faded away, Tang Xiu's figure instantly appeared in front of Yi Wentao. A sharp dagger instantly slashed Yi Wentao's arm, causing a wound the size of a baby's mouth to split open. Blood gushed out like a fountain and quickly splashed out. Tan Xiu coldly smiled. The tip of the dagger changed its direction and directly pierced his arm. Amidst Yi Wentao's screams, Tan Xiu retreated 2 steps. Watching Yi Wentao's arms weakly being pulled down, he sneered and said, How do you feel now? Yi Wentao almost fainted due to the severe pain. Looking at the smile on Tan Xiu's face, his vision turned black and he almost fainted. It was not because of the pain, but because of the fear in his heart. From the first moment Tan Xiu made his move, he knew that Tan Xiu was a ruthless and merciless person. But he never thought that Tan Xiu's ruthlessness had reached this point. He didn't kill him. What he was doing now was completely tormenting him. It was not only physical torture, but also mental torture. Yi Wentao began to pray, praying that his big brother, Yi Wenhe, would come with his men. Otherwise, he didn't know if he could hold on until his big brother came. You're ruthless, Tan Xiu. Yi Wentao suddenly raised his head. His pair of eyes seemed to be able to spurt out flames as he stared at Tan Xiu and shouted. Tan Xiu sneered. Whether I'm ruthless or not, it's not up to you to decide. I'll give your big brother half an hour. If he hasn't come with his men within half an hour, I won't waste any more time. I'll just kill you and let my subordinates clean up the aftermath. Yi Wentao's heart turned cold. He didn't want to die. He was less than 40 years old and had a huge fortune. If he were to die now, then it would be meaningless even if he had a huge fortune. He had fantasized countless times, fantasizing that he would have a huge fortune in the future and enjoy the rest of his life. Tan Xiu, give my big brother 40 minutes. Unless there's no traffic jam, my big brother won't be able to get here within half an hour. 40 minutes. I guarantee that he can get here in 40 minutes. Also, even if my big brother comes, I won't let him do anything to you. It's my fault this time. My men shouldn't have hit your brother and friend. I'm willing to compensate you. Just tell me how to compensate. Yi Wentao was really scared. He looked at Tan Xiu in fear and nearly cried. 40 minutes? Well, since you said 40 minutes, then I'll give him 40 minutes. I hope he can get here within 40 minutes, sneered Tang Xiu. Else humph. Definitely, definitely. Yi Wentao nodded desperately. His eyes swept over the nearest man and shouted, "Give me your cell phone. I'll call my big brother." The middle-aged man's leg was broken by Tan Xiao, and he was suffering great pain at this time. Upon hearing Yi Wentao's words, he hurriedly threw the cell phone to him. Yi Wentao angrily shouted, "Can't you see that I can't use my hand? Come here and dial the number." The middle-aged man was trembling with fear. After quickly dialing the number, he endured the pain caused by his broken leg and supported Yi Wentao's waist. He barely stood up and dialed the number according to Yi Wentao's instructions. After that, he passed the cell phone to Yi Wentao's ear. "Who is it?" Yi Wenha's cold voice came from the phone. Yi Wentao shouted loudly, "Brother, my arms. My arms have been pierced by his dagger. Brother, hurry up. Hurry up. He'll give you 40 minutes. No, there's still 38 minutes left. If you can't get here in 38 minutes, he said he'll kill me. Big brother, I'm not joking with you. On who has been killed by him? His corpse is in front of me. Hurry up." At this time, Yi Wenha, who was taking the elevator downstairs, had a drastic change in expression. He knew that Anhu was his brother's most powerful subordinate, but he didn't expect that he would be killed in front of his brother. In a flash, killing intent emerged from Yi Wenha's body as he said in a deep voice, "I'll rush there as fast as I can. Tell him that I can agree to any condition. Tell him not to act first." All right. I'll tell him right away." Yi Wentao looked at Tan Xiao and loudly said, "Tan Xiao, my big brother said that he'll agree to any condition as long as you don't act first and wait for him to get here. Let me tell you, my big brother is the big boss of the Jindi Group with a net worth of 10 billion yuan. If you spare me, my big brother will definitely give you a lot of money. A lot of money. Do you think I'm short of money?" Tan Xiao sneered. "Then what do you want?" Yi Wentao asked aloud. "That's right. You said you have a request before. What is it?" "My request was very simple." Tan Xiao sneered. "But your men attacked me and some of them even died in my hands, so I'm not going to mention it again. Because I want to kill you." Yi Wentao's complexion instantly turned ghastly pale. His lips trembled as he looked at Tan Xiao, unable to speak. Tan Xiao had the thought of killing him. He could only pray that his big brother would come to save him quickly. Suddenly, the big man standing next to Yi Wentao said in a low voice, "Boss, tell him. We can let bygones be bygones about Anhu's death." Yi Wentao's expression froze. But a few seconds later, his eyes lit up and he loudly said, "Tan Xiao, Anhu is my henchman. He's a man who lives on the edge of a blade. Sooner or later, he will be killed in a fight with his enemies. So I don't mind you killing Anhu. I'll satisfy your request as long as it's yours. My big brother will also satisfy you." Today's guaranteed chapter is here. Brothers and sisters, please vote for it and vote for it. Quiet night, continue to stay up late to write and strive for another breakout tomorrow. Chapter 448. It was human nature to be greedy for life and afraid of death. No one could face death without fear. Of course, some people's death was as heavy as Mount Tai, while some people's death was as light as a feather. It was normal to be afraid. But some people would at least show a calm and unperturbed appearance in the face of death, while others would be scared shitless in the face of death. Yi Wentao didn't want to die. He once firmly believed that good people didn't live long, while scourges would last for thousands of years. Therefore, the evil deeds he had done in the past decades were too numerous to be listed. He had killed people, and he had killed more than one person. But when he saw those people begging for mercy and howling in pain, he felt some pity for them at first, but later on he became numb to it. However, at this time the roles had changed. He was now a fish on the chopping block. Only then did he suddenly realize how fearful and desperate those people he had harmed were. Regret. It was like a venomous snake biting his heart. His sudden repentance made the despair in his heart have some other meaning. Tan Xiao looked at Yi Wentao indifferently and lightly said, "Aren't you afraid that your men will be bitterly disappointed by your words? Just look at their faces. Don't they have the expression of a fox grieving for the death of a rabbit?" Yi Wentao turned his head blankly. When he saw his men lying on the ground, each and every one of them looked at him with disbelief, A wave of regret immediately assaulted him. He realized that his words of begging for mercy had chilled the hearts of his men. Yi Wentao opened his mouth but found that he didn't know what to say. Just wait and see. Tan Xiu sneered. Whether you can live a little longer or a little shorter depends on the speed of your big brother's arrival. After saying that, he lit a cigarette and walked a few steps to the side. His body leaned against a big tree and no longer spoke. Yi Wentao silently closed his eyes. Countless thoughts were churning in his mind. No one knew what he was thinking. Even his brothers who had followed him for many years didn't know what he was thinking. 10 minutes later, when Yi Wentao's eyes suddenly opened, he walked a few steps toward Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu, you don't need to wait for my big brother. You can kill me now. Tan Xiu raised his head in surprise and his gaze landed on Yi Wentao. To his surprise, he discovered that the murderous aura that was faintly present on Yi Wentao's body had disappeared without a trace. Although there was still some fear in his eyes, there was more determination in them. What was going on? Tan Xiu frowned slightly. He looked at Yi Wentao and asked, "Why did you change your mind?" Yi Wentao said, "My current situation is very similar to those who were persecuted by me in the past. I couldn't understand it in the past, but now I understand. This fear and despair, it's really... forget it. If you want to kill me, then do it. But before I die, I have a request that I hope you can agree to. Do you think you're qualified to negotiate with me?" Tan Xiu sneered. Yi Wentao shook his head and said, "I'm not negotiating with you. I'm asking or pleading." Tan Xiu said, "Tell me about it." Yi Wentao's eyes fell on his men and slowly said, "I used to be a bad guy who committed all kinds of crimes. I bullied the weak and feared the strong and persecuted a lot of people. Even if I'm killed by you today, it's my just deserts. Retribution has fallen on me. People like me have a saying that sooner or later you'll have to pay for what you did. However, although these men of mine are not good people, most of them listen to my orders. I'm the one who instructed them to do the evil deeds. Therefore, since they have been punished, I hope you can spare them and let them go. I guarantee that they will never speak about what happened today." Tan Xiu raised his brows and sneered, "Are you joking with me?" "No, I'm serious." Yi Wentao shook his head. In an instant, the eyes of Yi Wentao's men changed again as they looked at him. There was a bit of disbelief in their eyes. Never did they expect that Yi Wentao could say such words and make such a decision. It must be noted that Yi Wentao was still begging for mercy, due to fear a dozen minutes ago. He even expressed his selfish side vividly. But how come he seemed to have changed into a different person in just a few minutes? How could he make such a decision? Tan Xiu clapped his hands and said with a smile, "It seems you've been enlightened. There's a Buddhist saying that one can become a Buddha after laying down the butcher's knife. I think you can become a Buddhist monk if you don't die today. However, it's impossible for me to kill you now. Your big brother is the big boss of the Jindy group, and also your big backer. He should have done a lot of evil deeds all these years, right? So I need to clean him up and make him pay the price." "No," Yi Wentao exclaimed. "My big brother has nothing to do with my business, Tan Xiu. Although he's my big brother and I can achieve what I have today thanks to his help, he rarely interferes with me when it comes to committing crimes. I know you're very powerful, and I also know that my big brother is not a good person. But I hope you won't have a conflict with him. Now you know how powerful I am?" Tan Xiu sneered. Yi Wentao nodded heavily and said word by word, "I know you're very powerful. You're even more powerful than those martial arts experts I've heard. Even the best special forces in our country can't do what you did. Although I don't know who you are and how strong your background is, I hope we can put an end to this matter. I'm right here, and you can kill me if you want." Tan Xiu was silent for half a minute. He had been watching Yi Wentao's expression, and found that his expression was very calm. Even his heartbeat was normal, and it didn't seem like he was saying hypocritical words at all. "Wait." Tan Xiu finally made a decision. "What are you waiting for, Tan Xiu?" asked Yi Wentao aloud. "I'm me, and my big brother is my big brother. He shouldn't have offended you, right? He indeed didn't offend me, but I want to know what kind of person he is." Tan Xiu said lightly, "If he's like you, I don't mind killing him. It's like getting rid of an evil for the people. Yi Wentao was furious. He looked at his subordinate who was holding a mobile phone and said in a deep voice, "Call my big brother's number. I want to talk to him. If you don't want all your men to be slaughtered by me, it's best not to make this call," Tan Xiu said without being salty nor light. Yi Wentao was stunned, whereas his subordinate shrunk his neck and his fingers that were about to press the button stiffened. He was at a loss as he looked at Yi Wentao and Tan Xiu with a face full of fear. Time fleeted by. As Qi Nan arrived with 6 experts of the everlasting feast hall, Tan Xiu secretly shook his head. Only now did he realize that the everlasting feast hall was actually not that far from here. It was only a 20-minute drive at most. Boss! Qi Nan respectfully came to Tan Xiu's front and called out. The 6 big men also had a respectful expression on their faces as they lined up and respectfully called out. Yi Wentao was dumbfounded. Never once did he expect that Tan Xiu, who was only a freshman at Shanghai University, actually had subordinates. Furthermore, he had a keen eyesight. Judging from the steady footsteps of the 6 big men and their sturdy physiques, he knew that they were definitely not ordinary people. Perhaps, each and every one of them had real skills. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Let's wait for a while. There will be more people coming. Wait for me to deal with them. How many corpses will be left here in the end? You deal with them." "There's only one way to solve this thoroughly, boss," said Qi Nan. "You mean?" Tan Xiu hesitated. "Kill all the enemies here. I'll transfer a group of people here to transport their corpses out of Shanghai overnight. Then rent a boat to the international waters and throw them to the sea to feed the fishes," said Qi Nan coldly. His Yi Wentao and his dozens of men couldn't help but gasp cold air. Their eyes were full of disbelief. They couldn't figure out how the beautiful Qi Nan could have such a vicious heart. There were dozens of people here. How ruthless would it be to kill all of them? They thought that Tan Xiu was ruthless and merciless enough. But it turned out that his men were even more ruthless. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Killing all of them is indeed the best way to destroy the corpses and erase the traces. But killing too much will be bad for your future. Just wait and see. We'll wait until the people we're waiting for arrive. If they perform well, we'll deal with them easily. But if they're arrogant, we'll kill some of their leaders and cripple the rest. Besides, I believe that those who can survive today won't dare to reveal half a word about what happened here." "How can you be so sure, boss?" asked Qi Nan in surprise. "I believe that these people all have families." Tan Xiu sneered. "If they dare to publicize this matter, then they must be prepared for their families to be ruined. Do you think that they will be hunted down and have their families destroyed just because they spoke too fast?" Qi Nan thought for a while and nodded. "You're right, boss. I'll send people to investigate the families of everyone here. If anyone dares to bring trouble to us, I'll have a way to find and kill them even if they flee abroad with their families." "I told you that I'll leave the aftermath to you," said Tan Xiu. "Understood." Qi Nan nodded. Their conversation didn't avoid Yi Wentao and his men, so the dozens of people who heard it felt a chill on their necks. Now, they still couldn't figure out Tan Xiu's true identity, and they were even more afraid of Qi Nan's ruthlessness. Hence, they made up their minds that they must not speak about what happened today even if someone put a knife on their necks. 10 minutes later, Yi Wenhe quickly rushed into the new dream renovation company along with dozens of big men in black suits, and came to the backyard. Yi Wenhe's complexion greatly changed when he saw the scene in the courtyard. "I'm really sorry. I stayed up all night until 5 a.m. last night. I thought I could get up at 8 a.m. to update this chapter, but I ended up sleeping until now. I'll give you a chapter first. There will be 2 more later." Chapter 449. Yi Wenhe had a net worth of 10 billion yuan. And he was the big boss of a listed company, the Golden Ground Group. In the entire business circle of Shanghai, he was very famous. Therefore, his younger brother, Yi Wentao, also rose with him. He had a good status and earned a lot of money. However, he never dreamed that he would see such a situation happen to his younger brother, Yi Wentao, one day. Blood. Extremely dazzling. Wounds. Ferocious and terrifying. The injured people in the courtyard were all his younger brother Yi Wentao's men. Especially on whose corpse, it made him breathe heavily. Yi Wentao rushed to Yi Wenhe and turned his back to Tan Xiao as he said loudly, "Brother, I was wrong this time. It's not Tan Xiao's fault. He taught me a lesson and made me understand one thing. Good will be rewarded with good, and evil will be punished with evil. So you can go back with your men." After saying that, he quickly winked at Yi Wenhe. Yi Wenhe's expression turned extremely unsightly, but he could understand his younger brother's wink. In an instant he became vigilant, but he didn't leave. Instead, he quickly took off his clothes, turned around, and took a knife from one of his trusted men behind him. He quickly cut his clothes, tore a few strips of cloth, and quickly wrapped them around the wounds on Yi Wentao's arms. "Tell me, what the hell is going on?" Yi Wenhe asked with a gloomy face. Yi Wentao forced a smile and said, "I didn't know, but Manager Li told me. A few college students came to my renovation company and wanted to hire someone to renovate their gym. But because they couldn't come to an agreement, those college students went to other renovation companies. Therefore, Manager Li sent some people to make trouble and injured those college students, as well as several people from other renovation companies. Those college students are Tan Xiao's friends, so he came to retaliate. Big brother, we've already been punished, so let's forget about this matter." Yi Wenhe turned to look at Tan Xiao and coldly said, "Sir, aren't you too ruthless? Not only did you injure so many people, but you also killed my brother's men just because of a misunderstanding. That's too much." "Too much?" Tan Xiao sneered. "If it wasn't for my strength, I'm afraid I would have died here. You say I'm going too far? You should be glad that your brother is still alive." After a moment of silence, Yi Wenhe slowly said, "Since things have come to this point and my brother has been punished, let's end this matter here." Tan Xiao sneered and said, "End? Are you kidding me?" Yi Wentao strode forward to block Yi Wenhe and spoke to Tan Xiao in a deep voice. "Tan Xiao, I still have the same words as before. You can do whatever you want, but don't make things difficult for my brother and my injured men." "Shut up." Yi Wenhe's expression changed drastically. Although he didn't know why his brother, Yi Wentao, was so afraid of Tan Xiao, he wasn't afraid at all. This time, he had brought people with him and had made sufficient preparations. Even if Tan Xiao could fight, even if he had some people with him, could they block bullets? Yi Wenhe stared at Tan Xiao and indifferently said, "Don't push your luck, little brother. I, Yi Wenhe, am a respected figure in Shanghai. Do you think I'd let this matter go if it wasn't for my brother's words? Also, it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Since both sides have suffered losses, it's better to end this matter here. Else, if we really shed all pretense of cordiality, neither of us will have a good time." Qi Nan's eyes turned cold and she said in a deep voice, "We can massacre everyone here, boss." Tan Xiao shot a deep look at Yi Wenhe. A smile immediately appeared on his face as he said, "You're very arrogant. You're really brothers and none of you are kind. I've heard about your Jindy group before, and I've also heard your name. Now it seems that you do have some ability." "I don't need you to judge whether I have ability or not," snorted Yi Wenhe coldly. Tan Xiao walked a few steps toward Yi Wenhe. Just when Yi Wenhe thought that Tan Xiao would stop, Tan Xiao's speed suddenly sped up. Almost like an afterimage flashed, a dagger appeared in his hand out of nowhere and fiercely pierced Yi Wenhe's arms and shoulders. The moment he violently retreated to his original position, blood immediately gushed out of Yi Wenhe's arms. "Do it. Kill all those who use guns." Cold words came out of Tan Xiao's mouth. Qi Nan and the 6 big men had long been secretly prepared. Upon hearing Tan Xiao's order, the 6 big men's speed was also very fast. The moment they pulled out their daggers, they had already rushed into the group of men brought by Yi Wenhe. Yi Wenhe's subordinates fell to the ground as soon as the battle began. His powerful martial strength and unstoppable momentum had just begun. The 6 big men closest to Yi Wenhe suddenly had a crazy change in their complexion. They quickly pulled out their pistols from their waists. Before they could pull the safety, a silver pistol appeared in Qi Nan's hand. As the muzzle spewed out flames, 6 bullets pierced the eyebrows of the 6 big men. Yi Wentao's heart trembled. The moment Tan Xiao took action, he knew that he was in trouble. The moment the 6 armed men fell, he once again rushed to the front of Yi Wenhe and used his body to block Yi Wenhe. "Brother, you're forcing yourself. Yi Wentao's heart was full of bitterness. Although the fighting scene looked a bit chaotic, the big men who fell were all the men brought by his big brother. The 6 men of Tanxiu were like 6 tigers rushing into a flock of sheep. The flock of sheep didn't even have the strength to fight back. It was like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. Here are 2 chapters first. The rest will be updated in the evening. Continue to seek monthly votes and recommendation votes. Amidst the blood and screams, dozens of stalwart men fell one after another. The 6 men of Tanxiu acted very quickly. From the beginning to the end, it didn't take more than a minute for all of them to be severely injured and fall to the ground, unable to stand up. Boss, the task is completed. The 6 big men wiped the blood on their faces and quickly retreated to the front of Tanxiu. Tanxiu nodded and gestured to them to stand aside. Then he leisurely walked toward the 2 brothers, Yi Wentao and Yi Wenhe, whose faces were full of fear. Now you know what fear is? Tanxiu smiled grimly. He took out a cigarette and lit it. He took a deep puff and exhaled the smoke ring as he spoke again. Yi Wenhe, weren't you very arrogant just now? Why are you standing behind your brother like a coward now? What did I just see? Your legs are trembling. How scared are you? Why are your legs trembling? Yi Wenhe was really scared now. He was full of confidence just now, thinking that he had brought dozens of men who could fight and fight. Therefore, even though his brother, Yi Wentao, winked at him and spoke humbly to Tanxiu, he still thought that Tanxiu was just that kind of person. But how did the plot develop to this point when they really fought? Blood flowed from his arms, but he didn't dare to bandage it. He could only raise his hands and cover the wounds on his shoulders, trying to slow down the bleeding. Yi Wentao was scared. The 6 warm bodies lying beside him made him realize that Qi Nan was really a demoness who killed without batting an eyelid. Tanxiu, please forgive my brother's recklessness. He really didn't want to be your enemy. It's just that he's used to this kind of attitude, so he didn't change it for a while. But now, you've already killed him and beaten him, so please spare my brother. If you have any resentment, just come at me. Tanxiu shot a deep look at Yi Wentao and sighed. I don't know why your mentality changed like this, but it's still a good thing. So I decided not to kill you. As long as you can agree to my conditions, the matter between us will be written off. Yi Wentao's eyes lit up. He immediately nodded and said, Tell me your conditions. I'll never refuse as long as I can agree to it. First, you 2 brothers must come up with 1 billion yuan as compensation, said Tanxiu. Second, you personally go to Shanghai's first public hospital and kneel in front of the hospital for a day. Third, cut off one of Manager Li's hands and one of his legs. Fourth, you 2 brothers will deal with the aftermath. Yi Wentao's expression constantly changed. After more than 10 seconds he nodded bitterly and said, I agree to all your conditions. Wentao. Yi Wenhe shouted in a low voice. Yi Wentao turned around and looked at Yi Wenhe with a wry smile. Big brother, do we still have room to bargain? If he wants to kill us, he can easily do it now. I originally thought that I would die for sure, but now I still have a glimmer of hope, so I can only promise him. Yi Wenhe fell into silence. He knew that his younger brother was telling the truth. With how ruthless and merciless Tanxiu's group was, it was very likely that this day next year would be the anniversary of their death. Tanxiu nodded and lightly said, Give me your cell number. I'll send my bank account to your cell phone. All my conditions must be fulfilled by 12 o'clock tomorrow night. Otherwise, I don't mind leading my men to slaughter them. After saying that, he then turned around and walked outside. 2 minutes later, Yi Wentao finally retracted his gaze. After he looked at Yi Wenhe, he bitterly said, Big brother, let's bandage our wounds first. We've failed this time, and we can't go on like this again. Otherwise, sooner or later, we 2 brothers will die very miserably. A chilling light flashed in Yi Wenhe's eyes. He hadn't tasted this kind of suffering for more than 10 years, and he hated Tanxiu to the core. He had made up his mind that he would bow his head and admit his mistake this time. But he must secretly accumulate his strength to take revenge for today's humiliation in the future. Revenge is a dish best served cold, Yi Wenhe coldly said. Yi Wentao's expression changed and he said in a deep voice, Big brother, you'd better not think about revenge anymore. Tan Xiao and his men are simply inhuman. Even if we train hundreds of experts, they may not necessarily be his match. Who knows how powerful his background is? I'll send someone to investigate him. Yi Wenhe coldly snorted. Chapter 450. After Tan Xiao left the New Star Dream Renovation Company, he took Qi Nan to Shanghai's first public hospital, whereas the 6 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall quietly lurked near the New Dream Renovation Company to monitor the Yi brothers' actions. After all, Tan Xiao didn't want any unforeseen event to happen. If the Yi brothers called the police or the aftermath wasn't handled well, the 6 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall would deal with it. At the inpatient department ward, after Tan Xiao entered the room, he saw Yuan Chuling playing with his mobile in a listless manner. As he came to the end of the bed, Tan Xiao said with a faint smile, "I've sent someone to find 2 nurses for each of you. I've also paid a large sum of money for the hospitalization and medical expenses. You can recuperate here with peace of mind. Don't worry about your school's matter. I'll find someone to deal with it later." Yuan Chuling's spirit shook as he looked at Tan Xiao and asked, "Eldest brother, can I go out to recuperate? The smell in this hospital is too bad. Besides, lying in the hospital bed is really boring." "You must be hospitalized for treatment." Tan Xiao shook his head. "The most important task for you now is to recuperate well. The October holiday is coming soon. Try to get out of bed and report to school after the holiday, and then recuperate outside. Aren't you a powerful divine doctor, eldest brother?" Yuan Chuling said dejectedly. "How can the doctors in this hospital compare to you in medical skills? Why don't you treat me? Your injury is just a flesh wound, and it needs to heal slowly." Tan Xiao said, "I'm best at first aid and treating chronic diseases. Even if I treat you, the effect won't be very good. So, take your time to recuperate. Try to gain some weight after you recover." "What the?" Yuan Chuling was speechless. He was fat all over and wished he could lose weight as soon as possible. Tan Xiao's words were a severe blow to him. "That's right, eldest brother. What did you do before?" "I went to the New Dream Renovation Company," answered Tan Xiao. "You went to the New Dream Renovation Company, eldest brother?" Yuan Chuling was shocked. What did you do?" Tan Xiao said indifferently, "Revenge." Yuan Chuling's body trembled. Seeing that Tan Xiao wasn't injured, he asked curiously, "How did you take revenge?" Tan Xiao lightly said, "Those who should be beaten will be beaten, and those who should be killed will be killed. Tomorrow the owner of New Dream Construction Company, Yi Wenhe, will kneel in front of the First People's Hospital for a day as an apology. In addition, he also paid $1 billion. Do you want it?" Yuan Chuling opened his mouth wide and looked at Tan Xiao in disbelief, not knowing what to say. He even seriously suspected that Tan Xiao was bragging. "Boss, is what you said true?" Tan Xiao nodded seriously and said, "Yes, it's true." Yuan Chuling gulped down his saliva. Seeing that Tan Xiao didn't seem to be joking, he hesitated and said, "Although I still don't believe it, eldest brother, it's what you said. I don't want the money. If that surnamed Yi really kneels in front of the First People's Hospital for a day, I can vent my hatred. However, I'm afraid that he will attract trouble if he kneels for a day. How about this? Let him kowtow 3 times in the ward, and then let him scram." Tan Xiao thought about it and felt that Yuan Chuling's idea was also good, so he dialed the cell number Yi Wenhe gave him before. "You don't need to kneel in front of the First People's Hospital for a day tomorrow. You just need to come to my friend and kowtow 3 times to apologize." "All right." Yi Wenhe's tone was a bit excited after hearing it. If he had to choose between kneeling for a day and kowtowing 3 times, he would definitely choose the latter. After all, if he really kneeled in front of the First People's Hospital of Shanghai for a day, he would be on the headlines of the major media in the country the next day. Even his face would be completely lost. In the future, not to mention in Shanghai, even in other parts of the country, he might not be able to survive. Tan Xiao thought about it and said casually, "The compensation will be increased by 100 million. Bring it to my friend tomorrow." "No problem." Yi Wenhe answered very happily. Tan Xiao hung up the phone and looked at Yuan Chuling on the hospital bed. He said lightly, I asked for 100 million more. Since you don't want to take 1 billion, take this 100 million as pocket money. Yuan Chuling looked at Tan Xiao with a strange face. He raised his finger and pointed at his nose and said, "Give me 100 million? As pocket money?" Tan Xiao asked, "Is it not enough?" Yuan Chuling quickly waved his hand and said with a wry smile, "How is it not enough? It's more than enough. 100 million. Although my family is rich, and I can even take out several billion, let alone 100 million. I have never seen 100 million in my life." Tan Xiao said with a faint smile, "It's good that you're satisfied. By the way, you should know that I'm on the headlines, right?" Yuan Chuling clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Of course I know, big bro. I'm afraid everyone in the country knows about the recent video incident. I already knew that you're very good at playing the zither, but I didn't expect that it would cause such a big commotion. Now you're also a big star." Tan Xiao said helplessly, "I didn't expect that things would develop to this point. However, because of the video incident, I haven't been to school for a few days. Therefore, I'll be at school for the next few days. I'll come to see you before the National Day holiday, but I'm afraid the number of times will be limited." Yuan Chuling waved his hand and said, "Didn't you say that you've hired a nurse for us? You can rest assured that I'll have a nurse to take care of me." "That's right, I heard that your school has a campus bell ranking. When are you going to hook up with some of them and bring them to accompany me to relieve my boredom?" "Fuck off." Tan Xiao couldn't help but curse with a smile. Knock, knock. The door was knocked and Qinan came in from the outside. She looked at Yuan Chuling on the sickbed and nodded. Then she looked at Tan Xiao and said, "Boss, I've hired a total of 12 nurses, 2 for each of us. They will take turns to take care of them day and night. Is there anything else you need me to do?" "The food in the hospital is very bad." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "Arrange a few people to send them meals every day. Remember, it must be light. Almost all of them have external injuries, so it's not suitable for them to eat oily food. Also, get more food to nourish their bodies." "All right, I'll arrange it when I get back," Qinan respectfully said. Tan Xiao nodded and said, "Then you go back first. I'll inform you if there's anything." Yuan Chuling watched Qinan leave the ward. Then he asked with a surprised expression, "Eldest brother, who's that beautiful big sister? She's very beautiful, yet she's so respectful to you. Aren't you a bit too awesome? Is she an employee of your magnificent Tang Corporation?" "She's called Qinan." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "She's not an employee of the magnificent Tang Corporation. She's the deputy manager of the Everlasting Feast Hall in Shanghai." "How can a deputy manager of a restaurant call you boss?" Yuan Chuling was confused. "I'm the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss, so she's naturally my employee," said Tan Xiao with a faint smile. "You actually opened a restaurant in Shanghai?" Yuan Chuling was surprised. "Sort of," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Whenever you go to the Everlasting Feast Hall to have a meal, whether it's in Shanghai, the imperial capital, Jingmen Island, Hong Kong, or any other place, as long as the Everlasting Feast Hall is there, you won't have to pay as long as you mention my name, and they'll even treat you as a VIP." Yuan Chuling gave a thumbs up and praised. "Eldest brother, this old Yuan is convinced. You're simply my idol, a god in my mind. How long has it been since you came to Shanghai? You even opened a restaurant. From what you said, it seems like you've also opened branches in the imperial capital, Hong Kong, and Jingmen Island. That's really heaven-defying. Just keep your admiration for me in your heart. I'll be embarrassed if I say it out loud," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Shameless." Yuan Chuling scolded him with a smile. "All right, let's see if you can still joke with me. It proves that you're fine," said Tan Xiao with a chuckle. "Anyways, I'll take my leave first to find a way to solve your school's problem. Then I'll leave it to you, eldest brother," Yuan Chuling quickly said. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing and said, "We're brothers, so there's no need to be so polite." "Ah, that's right. Send me the information about you and these 2 students in a text message." "No problem." Yuan Chuling hurriedly took out his mobile phone. A few minutes later, Tan Xiao left the inpatient department building and took out his mobile in the hospital parking area. After thinking for a moment, he wrote a text message and sent it to Jin Xingkui and Gu Changmin. Immediately after, Gu Changmin's phone call came. Brother Tang, the vice president of Shanghai University of Science and Technology, is my brother-in-law. Why are you asking about this? Gu Changmin's voice came out of the phone. Brother Gu, I have a friend who is a student of Shanghai University of Science and Technology. He and I have invested in a fitness center. Recently, he and his 2 classmates were seriously injured due to a conflict with others during the renovation. They are now hospitalized in Shanghai First People's Hospital. I want to ask you to help me contact the university's leaders to approve their leave. After all, they will be hospitalized for some time, and it will be very troublesome if they keep skipping classes. It's just a trivial matter. Gu Changmin laughed. No problem. I'll call my brother-in-law immediately. Ah, that's right. Send me the information about your friend and his classmates. Wait a moment. Tan Xiu hung up the phone and forwarded the text message sent by Yuan Chuling to Gu Changmin. Then he received a call from Jin Xingkui. From Jin Xingkui, he learned that he didn't know the leaders of Shanghai University of Science and Technology, but he knew a few leaders of Shanghai University. After explaining a few words, Tan Xiu hung up the phone. What he didn't expect was that after he asked Gu Changmin for help, Gu Changmin would personally rush to Shanghai University of Science and Technology. After talking with his brother-in-law for a while, the vice president of Shanghai University of Science and Technology, a powerful leader, personally led a team to Shanghai First People's Hospital to visit Yuan Chuling and his 2 students. Moreover, under the dumbfounded situation of Yuan Chuling, he expressed his condolences and rewards. As for what the reward was, it was nothing more than that Yuan Chuling had set a good example for today's college students. He was only a freshman, but he had already started his own business while studying and so on. In short, Yuan Chuling was praised to the point that even he felt embarrassed. Inwardly, he admired Tan Xiu's ability and prostrated himself in admiration. Today's 3rd chapter is here. I'm asking for monthly votes to support me. If I can get 50 monthly votes before midnight, I will continue to update 2 chapters in the evening. _. Chapter 451. After leaving the hospital, Tan Xiu didn't directly return to the campus, but went back to the Blue Star Villa complex instead. What puzzled him was that Ouyang Lulu and Zhang Xinya didn't leave, but lazily nestled on the sofa, eating snacks, watching an idle drama, and chatting with a smile. Are you 2 very free? Asked Tan Xiu with a strange expression. Ouyang Lulu jumped up from the sofa, put on her slippers and said, We're all very busy. We would have gone shopping if we weren't waiting for you. Very busy. Shopping? Tan Xiu didn't dare to compliment Ouyang Lulu's words. He shook his head and smilingly said, If I remember correctly, Xinya's concert is tomorrow night, right? Zhang Xinya stood up with a smile and picked up her bag. She took out a stack of concert tickets from the inside and handed it to Tan Xiu, saying, Great Scholar Tang, since you don't want to be a special guest of my concert, you should give me face by being an ordinary audience member, right? Here are some concert tickets. You can give them to your classmates and friends. You're welcome to come and support us when the time comes. Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before he took the concert tickets and smilingly said, I can be an audience member. You're such a big star, so I won't give you face if I don't go. All right, I'll be there on time to support you. Great Scholar Tang, I'm sure the concert will be very successful with your presence, said Zhang Xinya with a smile. Can we not make a fuss? Tan Xiu said with a smile. What Great Scholar Tang? I'm not family with Tang Bohu. Hee hee. Zhang Xinya covered her mouth and chuckled. Ring ring, ring. A pleasant ringtone sounded from his mobile phone. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and looked at the caller ID. It was an unfamiliar number from the imperial capital. He immediately raised his brows and pressed the answer button, saying, Tan Xiu speaking, who's this? It's me, Li Xiaojia, boss. A man's voice came out of the phone. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and remembered who this Li Xiaojia was. He was a talent cultivated by the Tang family and had helped him deal with the Yao family in Guangyang province. Why are you calling me? I was transferred to the imperial capital a few days ago, boss, said Li Xiaojia. My family arranged me to be in charge of some intelligence work. I just received a tip-off that some criminals will create a terrorist incident in Shanghai tomorrow. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and asked, "There are criminals causing terrorist incidents. What do you mean by calling me?" Li Xiaojie said, "According to the intelligence, those criminals should have taken action at the concert of the big star Zhang Xinya. You are now in Shanghai. I'm afraid that you will encounter sudden danger when you attend Zhang Xinya's concert. Now the government has intervened in the security issue over there, but just in case, I still want to inform you." Tan Xiu's expression slightly changed and he asked in a deep voice, "Who are these criminals you mentioned?" "It should be some radicals in the country," said Li Xiaojie. "After our investigation, we found that some people in our country are extreme and cynical. They have secretly formed a small group. In the past 2 years, this group has made several actions to endanger social stability. Every time, the danger was averted by the State Security Department. Although the state has arrested most of them, these people are very cunning and a small number of them have not been caught. There were all kinds of birds in a big forest." Tang Xiu was well aware of this truth. That was why those extreme and cynical people like Li Xiaojie said did exist. It was just that such people were very few in number, and the state also deliberately blocked the news, so their existence was not known to many people in the outside world. However, Zhang Xinya was his friend. If those radicals wanted to make trouble at Zhang Xinya's concert, he would absolutely not allow it. After pondering for a moment, Tan Xiu said, "The government department, who is responsible for this incident in Shanghai?" Li Xiaojie said, "It's the 6th Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Security, Lu Changxi. Last night, he rushed to Shanghai with his people and met with the people from the Ministry of Security there. He also cooperated with the police to ensure the safety of Zhang Xinya's concert tomorrow night." Tan Xiu said, "Give me Lu Changxi's contact information." Li Xiaojie was surprised and said, "Boss you." Tan Xiu said, "Zhang Xinya is my friend. I can't see anything happen to her concert. Thank you for telling me about this. I'll go to the capital during the National Day. I'll treat you to dinner then." "Boss, this is what I should do." Li Xiaojie's tone was full of flattery. Tan Xiu said with a smile, "That's it for now. Don't forget to send me his contact information." After that, Tan Xiu hung up the phone and his face quickly turned gloomy. At the side, Zhang Xinya looked at Tan Xiu blankly and asked, "Tan Xiu, who called you? Why did I hear that something will happen at my concert tomorrow night? What's going on?" Tan Xiu said in a deep voice, "The person who called me is a member of a government department in the country. He told me that some people will cause trouble at your concert tomorrow night. If their means are very bad, I'm afraid that it will cause bloodshed. Now the leader of the Ministry of State Security has arrived in Shanghai. If my guess is correct, someone will contact you later." Zhang Xinya was confused and said, "Radical? Who are they?" Tan Xiu said, "There are all kinds of birds in a big forest. Our country has more than 1 billion people, so it's natural that there will be some extreme and cynical people. These people have formed a small group in private, and have done some bloody things that endanger the stability of society. And this time, their target should be your concert in Shanghai. Once they succeed, it will cause great harm and bad influence." Zhang Xinya's face turned a bit pale. She simply couldn't imagine how much damage it would cause to her fans if the time mentioned by Tan Xiu really happened at the concert, and how much impact it would have on her reputation. Zhang Xinya looked at Tan Xiu's solemn expression, and hurriedly grabbed Tan Xiu's arm. She nervously said, "Tan Xiu, what should I do if something really happens at my concert? How about I talk to my partners and cancel the concert?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "I'm afraid it will be very troublesome to cancel the concert. As far as I know, the tickets for your concert are almost sold out, right? Once it's canceled, your fans will definitely be angry, and it will have a huge impact on you. Furthermore, I believe that your partners won't agree to cancel the concert in order to prepare for it. Of course, the most important thing is that some big shots in the country will probably want to take advantage of your concert to arrest and purge those radicals." Zhang Xinya opened her mouth and didn't know what to say for a while. She could only look at Tan Xiu for help. The leader in charge of security issues in the country is called Lu Changxi, said Tan Xiao. I'll contact him now to discuss the cooperation with him. If there are really radicals carrying out terrorist activities at your concert, they must be arrested at the first time and put an end to their evil acts. Zhang Xinya quickly nodded, her eyes full of gratitude. Shortly after, Tan Xiao quickly dialed the number sent by Li Xiaojia. 10 seconds later, a deep and low voice came out of the phone. Lu Changxi speaking. Who is this? Hello, Minister Lu. I'm Tan Xiao, said Tan Xiao. Who's Tan Xiao? Lu Changxi's tone was very cold. My grandfather is Tang Guosheng, and my uncle is Tang Yimpeng, said Tan Xiao. The other side of the phone was silent for more than 10 seconds. Then he said in a relaxed tone, Tan Xiao, I've heard of you. You're the child of the Tang family who has been separated for many years. How's old Master Tang? You're looking for me because my grandfather is fine. Minister Lu, said Tan Xiao. I'm calling you now because I got some news that someone will be at Zhang Xinya's concert in Shanghai tomorrow night to endanger social stability. Moreover, I also got the news that you're the one in charge of the security issues. Can we meet and talk face to face? Lu Changxi hesitated for a moment and said, Tan Xiao, I need to ask you a question. The security issues of Zhang Xinya's concert can be handled by the people from our security department and the police. Why do you care about this matter? Zhang Xinya is my friend, said Tan Xiao with all seriousness. Also, I'm in Shanghai now, so I have some ability to help you. I'm in Shangri-La Hotel, room 8068, said Lu Changxi. Remember, you must pay attention when you come here because we found a small fish living in room 8066. All right, replied Tan Xiao. Just as he was about to hang up the phone, a thought suddenly emerged in his mind and he said again, Minister Lu, I'm very curious. How can you confirm my identity with just a phone call from me? You even told me about the small fish's problem? Someone from the ministry called us half a minute ago and gave us your cell number, said Lu Changxi. Tan Xiao suddenly understood and said, I see. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiao looked at Zhang Xinya and said, What are you going to do next? I'll stay here and wait for you, said Zhang Xinya. Tan Xiao nodded and said, Lulu, stay with Xinya if you don't have anything else to do. I'm going to see the person in charge first and transfer a group of experts from Jingmen Island to ensure the security of the concert. Thank you, Tan Xiao, said Zhang Xinya gratefully. Didn't you hear what I just said? Tan Xiao waved and said, We're friends, so there's no need to be polite. Also, I don't want those criminals who endanger social security to continue to harm people. How about I also send some people? Said Ouyang Lulu. No need. I'll transfer some people here. Tan Xiao waved and said. Some people will secretly protect Xinya at that time. Even if some fish really slip through the net and sneak into the concert venue, it's impossible for them to harm Xinya. Chapter 452. Shanghai's Shangri-La Hotel was located in the bustling Jingning district. It was, after all, a 5-star hotel that occupied a large area. The hotel building was also extraordinarily magnificent. Tan Xiao took the elevator to room 8068 and knocked on the door. The door was immediately opened from the inside. A vigilant young man looked at Tan Xiao and asked, Who are you? Tan Xiao. The young man nodded. He poked his head out and glanced at the corridor on both sides. Then he went back inside and said, Please, Mr. Tang. Tan Xiao entered the room and saw 4 or 5 people sitting in front of the table, constantly typing on the computer keyboard in front of them. A lot of chaotic scenes were playing on the simple projector inside. An unprepossessing middle-aged man with a black mole on the corner of his mouth was sitting quietly in front of the simple projector, silently watching the scenes on it. Minister, Tan Xiao has arrived. The young man who was responsible for opening the door strode to Lu Changxi's side and whispered in his ear. Lu Changxi turned his head and looked at the approaching Tan Xiao. A smile immediately appeared on his face as he got up to greet Tan Xiao. He then stretched out his hand and said, Tan Xiao, I've long heard of your name. I didn't expect to see you today. Senior Tang is really blessed to have such an outstanding grandson like you. You're too polite, Minister Lu, said Tan Xiao with a smile. I've also heard a lot of your heroic deeds. Speaking of which, you are the country's defender and the people's shield. I'll treat you all to a meal after this incident is over to express my appreciation. Tan Xiao, we're almost embarrassed to be praised by you, said Lu Changxi with a smile. Please take a seat. Xiaowang, go make some tea. There's no need for tea, said Tan Xiao. Let's talk about those extremists. After the two men took a seat, Lu Changxi forced a smile and said, Tan Xiao, speaking of which, we inadvertently got the information that those extremists who have been hiding for more than a year are about to take action again. In fact, one of our people from the intelligence department even managed to obtain accurate information about Zhang Xinya's upcoming concert in Shanghai. Saying that, he personally operated the projector, and the screen finally stopped on a photo of a bald man. He said, his name is Shi Biao. On the surface, his identity is the owner of a video game city, but in fact he's a member of that extremist gang. We've investigated him, and he's been seen in several vicious incidents in the past few years. According to the tracking of our intelligence personnel, it is confirmed that he has already arrived in Shanghai. He is now staying in room 8066, which is next door. Tan Xiao released his divine sense, and instantly saw the middle-aged man called Shi Biao in the next room. He was smoking a cigarette and playing with a dagger. On the sofa opposite him, there was a 17 or 18-year-old girl who was tapping on a computer keyboard. The computer screen showed that she was playing a game. You only have information on Shi Biao? Do you have any specific information on the other members of that extremist group? Tan Xiao asked. Lu Changxi forced a smile and shook his head. We do have some other information, but it's not specific. For example, there's a guy called Old Wolf. He's about 50 years old, but we don't have his photo, real name, or other information about him. Tan Xiao nodded and said, You haven't contacted Zhang Xinya yet, have you? Lu Changxi shook his head and said, To avoid alerting the enemy, we haven't contacted her yet. However, I'm going to contact her tomorrow at noon. Tan Xiao said, You don't need to contact her. She was by my side when I called you before. As for her safety, I'll send someone to take care of it. Also, I'll go to the concert site tomorrow to coordinate with you. Tan Xiao, I think it's better if you don't go. Those extremists are not simple, said Lu Changxi quickly. Take this Shi Biao for example. He used to be a retired soldier, and then inexplicably disappeared for a few years. When he reappeared, he became the owner of that video game city. We've investigated through various clues and found out that Shi Biao is very powerful. If something happens to you during the concert, we won't be able to explain it to Senior Tang. Don't worry. I also know some martial arts. Ordinary people can't hurt me, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Lu Changxi still wanted to persuade him, but Tan Xiao stopped him. He waved and said, You don't have to say it again, Minister Lu. Zhang Xinya is my friend, and I can't ignore her safety. Besides, if something happens, I won't be stupid enough to rush there. I'll tell you in time, and it'll be your people who take action. Upon hearing it, Lu Changxi immediately felt relieved and said with a smile, Don't worry. I've already met the leader of Shanghai's Public Security Bureau. This operation will be a joint operation between our two sides. The armed police and special police will also be lying in ambush, and a large number of plainclothes police will be mixed in the audience. Once there's any danger, our people will be able to rush to stop it immediately. Tan Xiao nodded and said, If that's the case, then I'm relieved. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. Let's keep in touch. All right. Lu Changxi nodded. After he personally sent Tan Xiao out of the room, his expression turned cold. The young man who opened the door for Tan Xiao frowned and said, Minister, this Tan Xiao is simply causing trouble. Why did you agree with him? He's a member of the Tang family, after all, and also a friend of Zhang Xinya, said Lu Changxi helplessly. It seems that he must intervene in this matter. If I don't agree with him and he acts recklessly, it'll be very easy to cause trouble. Also, give him his mobile number, so that we can know in advance no matter where he is at the concert. Xiaowang, arrange 2 people to secretly protect him once he appears at the concert venue. Minister, do we still have to protect him? asked the young man. If something happens to him during our mission, do you think the old man of the Tang family will let it go? Lu Changxi sighed. You should have heard about the rumors in the imperial capital. In order to make up for what he owed to Tan Xiu, the old man of the Tang family is practically holding him in his mouth for fear that he'll melt and fall. We can't afford to offend him, so we can only assign 2 people to protect him. This is really depressing. He's simply causing trouble for us. The young man muttered, but still nodded. It was already 4:30 p.m. when Tan Xiu left the Shangri-La Hotel. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to go to the campus and give the concert tickets Zhang Xinya gave him to his classmates. However, on the way to the University of Shanghai, he called Gu Xiaoxue and asked her to send a group of powerful experts with clean backgrounds in the country. Although Gu Xiaoxue didn't know what Tan Xiu needed a large number of experts for, she didn't ask and sent 40 of them to wait for Tan Xiu's deployment. At the University of Shanghai, it was already the end of the class when Tan Xiu rushed to the teaching building. He didn't go to the classroom, but sat in the car and watched the students coming out from the gate. Suddenly, Tan Xiu raised his eyebrows and revealed a smile in his eyes because he saw a familiar face, Ilian. Beep beep. Tan Xiu honked the car horn secretly. Suddenly, many students coming out of the teaching building looked at him. That's Tan Xiu? Oh my god. I actually saw Tan Xiu? He hasn't come to school recently. I didn't expect him to come today. He seems to be very rich. That car is a Range Rover, right? I heard that the cheapest one costs about $1 million. Tan Xiu is now a big star. What is he doing in school? Classes are over now. Many people stopped to watch and discuss. Ilian and several of her classmates were also attracted by the car horn. When she saw Tan Xiu, her eyes suddenly lit up. She ignored the gazes of her roommates and ran toward Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu opened the car door and looked at Ilian running over. He then said with a smile, "Look at you. You seem to be very angry?" Ilian rushed to the front of Tan Xiu. When she heard his words, she immediately lifted her leg and kicked Tan Xiu's calf. Then she angrily said, "You knew that I was admitted to this university before the freshmen of Shanghai University registered. Why didn't you tell me that you've been admitted to this school? You didn't ask me. I can't deliberately show off to you that I'm admitted to Shanghai University, can I?" Tan Xiu said with a smile. You're twisting words and forcing logic," Ilian angrily said. Fine. I was wrong. I shouldn't have told you before just because you didn't ask. Tan Xiu laughed. Well, I'll treat you to a meal after I'm done with some things in 2 days. I'll introduce some handsome guys to you, alright? Ilian rolled her eyes at Tan Xiu with a bit of coquettish expression. She couldn't help but smile and said, "Who cares about handsome guys? Give me your cell phone number again. I lost my previous cell phone, and I can't find your number. I was planning to go to 9 Dragons Island during the National Day holiday to ask Mo for your number." Tan Xiu smiled and gave his number to Ilian. Then he said with a smile, "You don't have to go now. You've saved a lot of travel expenses, haven't you?" I'll find you for reimbursement." Ilian grunted. "That's right, I didn't expect you to be a student of Shanghai University. If it wasn't for your performance at the freshman welcoming party, I would have been kept in the dark until now. Tan Xiu, how come you're so amazing? You're still a college student, yet you have such a big business and know so many powerful people. If you want to express your admiration for me, I think you should endure it first." Tan Xiu interrupted her and said with a smile, "I still have something to do later." "What are you going to do later?" asked Ilian confused. "I'm going to deliver something to my classmates at the campus, and then I'll go out to do something," said Tan Xiu. "That's right, do you have time tomorrow night? Would you like to see the big star Zhang Xinya's concert?" Chapter 453. I really want to go. Zhang Xinya is my idol after all, said Ilian. But a concert ticket is too expensive. I've checked online and the tickets have been sold out, so I can't go even if I want to. Tan Xiu put his hand into his pocket and pretended to take out a stack of concert tickets from his interspatial ring. He then asked, "How many do you want?" Lianyan's eyes lit up and said without hesitation, 4. Tan Xiao randomly took out 4 tickets for the row seats and handed them to her with a smile. I got some concert tickets by chance. Take them since you want to go. You're amazing, Tan Xiao. Lianyan exclaimed in admiration. You're able to get so many. Tan Xiao waved his hand and forced a smile. Hey, Lianyan, we haven't seen each other for a long time. How did you turn into a flatterer? I still remember who said that if you want to catch up with me in the future, you must have at least 1/10 of my wealth, no? Lianyan's pretty face blushed and she snappily said, that was before, and now is now. Who knew that you're such a freak? You're still a student, yet you already have such a huge business and wealth. The goal I set before was nullified and changed to 1%. Pfft. Tan Xiao couldn't help but laugh. He was completely defeated by her words. It was said that women were fickle, and he had learned something new today. I also have your phone number now, Tan Xiao, so I'll go to the cafeteria to eat first. My dorm sisters are still waiting for me. Lianyan said with a smile. Be sure to call me when you're done with your work in 2 days. I will, said Tan Xiao. Lianyan let out a faint smile and turned to walk toward her good sisters not far away. She was immediately surrounded and interrogated by them. A few minutes later, Tan Xiao saw Yukai, Hu Qingsong, and the others walking out of the teaching building listlessly and immediately went to greet them. Big Bro Tang, why did you come to campus? Yukai was a bit surprised and couldn't help but ask. Seeing their surprised expressions, Tan Xiao smiled and said, I'm here to deliver something to you. I'll be leaving soon. What is it? Hu Qingsong asked curiously. Tan Xiao handed the remaining concert tickets to him and smilingly said, these are the tickets to Zhang Xinya's concert. The location seems to be quite good. You guys are responsible for sending 4 pieces to Mu Weining and the other 3. Distribute the rest among yourselves. Concert tickets? A few of them were shocked and gathered around to watch. A moment later, Hu Qingsong's words, which were filled with a thick northeastern accent, were transmitted into their ears. Big Bro Tang is simply amazing. All the tickets are for the first few rows. I remember that the online price for each ticket is at least 2,000 to 3,000 yuan, right? Tan Xiao shook his head with a smile and said, you guys go eat. I have something to do tonight, so I won't be eating at school. From tomorrow onwards, come to class. Hey Big Bro Tang, can you leave the car to me? Yukai quickly called out. Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment before he threw the car key to Yukai and said, then send me back first, and then drive back. Got it. Yukai caught the car key and walked toward the Land Rover Range Rover with a beaming smile. Quickly, Yukai drove Tan Xiao to the Blue Star Villa complex and stopped outside the courtyard. Just as Tan Xiao got off the car, he saw Yukai following him. You're not going back? No hurry, said Yukai with a smile. They'll give me some food. I'm a bit thirsty. Tan Xiao hesitated for a moment. Recalling that Zhang Xinya and Ouyang Lulu were still inside, he immediately said, let's go back to school and drink. It won't take long. Yukai stared blankly and carefully observed Tan Xiao. A glint flashed in his eyes and he dashed toward the villa's courtyard without saying anything. In just a few seconds, he had rushed to the villa's lobby. When his eyes swept over the 2 beautiful women sitting on the sofa inside, his footsteps instantly came to a halt and his mouth opened wide. Tan Xiao forced a smile and followed him inside. Looking at Yukai's shocked expression, he helplessly said, I told you to go back to school and drink water, but you didn't listen. Now your little heart can't stand it anymore, right? I'll say it first. You have to work hard to chase these beauties yourself. I won't help you. Pfft. Hee. Zhang Xinya and Ouyang Lulu got up from the sofa and couldn't help but burst into laughter when they saw Yukai's dumbfounded expression and gaping mouth. However, the poem, turning back and smiling charmingly, had thoroughly and vividly expressed the 2 women's brilliant smiles at this moment. Yukai, who was already shocked by the 2 women's beauty, suddenly felt his heart thumping crazily, and his blood pressure began to soar at this moment. Slap! Tan Xiao slapped Yukai's shoulder and woke him up. Then he said with a smile, all right, don't make a fool of yourself. You look like you've never seen a beauty before. Let me introduce you. She's Ouyang Lulu, my friend. There's no need for me to introduce Zhang Xinya. Her photo is on the poster on your bed. Yukai gulped down his saliva as disbelief flashed in his eyes. He stammered, Big Bro Tang, I'm not dreaming, am I? I thought that you might be hiding a mistress in your golden house. I never thought that you're really raising 2 canaries in your villa, no? They're the best canaries. Canaries? Tanxiu couldn't help but laugh as he shook his head. Zhang Xinya and Ouyang Lulu looked at each other, and suddenly burst into laughter. Suddenly, they felt that this friend of Tanxiu was really interesting. Tanxiu was too lazy to care about Yukai and said to Ouyang Lulu, Lulu, go to the fridge and get a bottle of drink for this guy. Then quickly send him away. Having such a classmate and roommate is really shameful. Ouyang Lulu obediently complied and ran to the fridge to get 2 bottles of drinks. After giving one to Yukai, she unscrewed the cap of the other one and handed it to Tanxiu, saying, Honey, your classmate is thirsty. You should also be thirsty, right? Come on, I've opened the cap for you. Drink it quickly. That's right. Xinya just said that the quilt on our bed needs to be changed. She personally picked a beautiful quilt from the cupboard and said that it's her favorite. She said that you'll have a good dream if you sleep on it at night. Puff, cough, cough, cough. Seeing Ouyang Lulu unscrewing the cap for Tanxiu, an envious look appeared in Yukai's eyes. He had just unscrewed the cap himself, and had yet to completely swallow it when he suddenly heard Ouyang Lulu's words. He nearly choked to death and coughed for a while. His face that was almost comparable to a woman's turned red. Tanxiu rolled his eyes and patted Yukai's back twice, snappily saying, Lulu, don't tease him. It's fine if you choke him into a fool, but if you choke him to death, it's a matter of life and death. Get lost. At this time, Yukai finally calmed down. His face was as red as a hen laying eggs as he fiercely glared at Tanxiu and shouted, Eldest bro Tang, I just found out that you're really shameless today. After that, he strode toward the villa's entrance. The smile on the corner of Tanxiu's mouth turned thicker as he looked at his back and said, This fella always talks about flirting with beauties and despises me for being a hypocrite all day long. Today, I can finally vent my anger. Lulu, though your words are very beautiful, you're a girl, so you must speak less of such words in the future. It won't be good if outsiders misunderstand you. Ouyang Lulu stuck out her surging twin peaks as she looked straight at Tanxiu and said, I'm not afraid. Worst comes to worst, it's just a fake show coming true and you can take me. Upon hearing it, Tanxiu immediately walked to the 2nd floor. After climbing a few steps, he said without turning his head, Someone will send you dinner. Wait for your dinner, and then quickly go do your business. Zhang Xinya stood at the side with a smile. She waited until Tanxiu's back disappeared at the stairs before she turned to look at Ouyang Lulu and asked in a whisper, Lulu, do you like Tanxiu? Of course. Ouyang Lulu nodded. Why would I run to him if I don't like him? But this fella obviously knows what I'm thinking, and only knows how to play the fool. Maybe he's not ready yet, said Zhang Xinya with a smile. I'm a girl. Yet I'm ready, yet he actually. Ouyang Lulu hummed. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. In any case, I firmly believe that there's no corner of the city wall that can't be dug, and there's no golden inlaid jade that can't be taken down. Sooner or later, I'll use the little flame of love to burn his cold heart. Ah, Lulu, you're too funny. Zhang Xinya laughed again and again. Ouyang Lulu proudly looked up. Suddenly, she seemed to recall something as she patted her forehead and said, Shit. I was just joking and forgot to ask him about the serious matter. Should we go and ask him how the discussion with the people from the security department went? The smile on Zhang Xinya's face receded like the tide. After a moment of hesitation, she shook her head and said, Let's ask him after dinner. I think Tanxiu should have told me the moment he came back if the situation was really bad. Ouyang Lulu nodded and said, Although Tanxiu is younger than both of us, he's very mature and steady. He knows what's more important and what's more important. If the situation is really bad, he'll definitely tell us directly and tell us the countermeasures. I think so too, said Zhang Xinya. Why don't you come with me to my place after we finish dinner? I need to practice singing tonight, so you can accompany me. Ouyang Lulu hesitated for a moment and then said, "Tell me the address. I'll go back and arrange some things. I'll find you later." "That's right. I've asked you before. You've always been so mysterious. Why did you come to Shanghai this time?" said Zhang Xinya. "I still have to keep it a secret." Ouyang Lulu let out a charming laugh and quickly ran toward the sofa. Furthermore, she was still plotting something in her mind. She wanted Zhang Xinya to be present when the secret was revealed. Chapter 454. In the outskirts of Shanghai, inside a large chemical plant, a middle-aged man with glasses, a thin figure, and a refined appearance was sitting in a large warehouse, assembling a time bomb. A cruel look was constantly looming in his eyes. He seemed to be imagining some bloody scenes in his mind, mixed with a faint excitement. Opposite him was a middle-aged woman with ordinary clothes and an ordinary appearance. Her neck was obviously burned, and the butterfly knife in her hand was constantly spinning. She was Huang Lan, an A-class wanted criminal in the country. She had once set fire to a family of 8, and cruelly killed the other 4 with a knife. It could be said that her hands were stained with blood, and she had committed numerous crimes. At the same time, she was also a drug dealer and a drug addict. Creak! The sound of a car braking was heard outside the warehouse. Huang Lan grabbed the butterfly knife and strode toward the warehouse's door. Through the gap, she saw 4 men coming out of an off-road vehicle. The vigilant look on her face immediately disappeared without a trace, replaced by a cruel smile. She opened the door and looked at the 4 men carrying bags, saying, "You're late." A white-haired old man wearing canvas shoes and carrying a bag snorted and said, "We encountered the police on the way, so we took a long detour to come here." "Huang Lan, have you prepared the things I asked you to prepare?" "They're all ready," said Huang Lan. "I'll smear 2,000 milliliters of AIDS patient's blood on the pushpins. We'll sneak into the concert venue early tomorrow morning and put them on the chairs. If the pushpins pierce the skin of the audience, the AIDS virus will be transmitted into their bodies." The old man nodded with satisfaction and asked again, "What about Old Wolf? How's his time bomb going?" "This time, we spent a lot of effort to get such a large batch of explosives. If something goes wrong with him, our operation will be considered to have failed by more than half. He's working on it and has made a lot of it." Huang Lan nodded. "I believe that once the concert begins, most of the concert venue will be blown up once the remote control device is detonated, and the number of people killed will be countless." "Well done," said the old man. "We'll immediately sneak out of the country after we finish this job. We'll come back after a few years when this matter has calmed down. Ashu has prepared 5 million for each of you. In the next few years, you won't have to worry about living abroad." Huang Lan said, "It doesn't matter how much money there is. As long as I can kill more people, I can vent my hatred. Before I came to Shanghai, I killed the last few people who bullied my family in the past. Even if I die in this operation, I won't have any regrets." The old man frowned and exuded a vicious aura. He said, "We once contributed to this country, but the people of this country abandoned us. So if you kill them, then kill them. You should kill more. I'm not afraid to tell you that I've already secretly installed a few time bombs that Old Wolf gave me in the Shanghai municipal government. Half an hour after the explosion at the concert, the Shanghai municipal government will also be in ruins. This is the best gift I can give them." "Well done." Huang Lan gave him a thumbs up. The old man suddenly asked, "You guys didn't tell Shi Biao where we were hiding?" Old Wolf, who was making a time bomb, raised his head. A sinister look flashed across his eyes as he coldly snorted. "Tell him? That bastard's identity is too mysterious. He may be a member of our group, but we still have to be on guard against him." "You're right," said the old man. "He may have joined us a long time ago, but he disappeared for a few years and then came back from abroad. His ability has grown, and he also has a lot of money. This is Zhang Xinya's concert. It's the biggest plan we've ever carried out. It's best not to tell him." Huang Lan said, "6 of us have arrived. There are still 9 guys who haven't arrived yet. Shall we continue to wait for them? Or, wait for them," said the old man. "There are some important nodes in our plan that we need them to do. Otherwise, it won't be easy for us to smoothly complete this operation. All right. More than 2 hours later, as the night shrouded the earth and the moonlight rose from the horizon, several cars quickly stopped outside the warehouse. As the 9 men and women entered the warehouse with the things, everyone quickly gathered together. Ah Ming, you're the security guard in charge of maintaining the order of Zhang Xinya's concert. Whether we can enter smoothly ahead of time depends on you, said the old man. The young man named Ah Ming nodded and coldly said, Don't worry. I'll arrange it. Also, I'll personally install a time bomb under the stage. Once it exploded, the famous heavenly queen, Zhang Xinya, would be blown to pieces. Just thinking about how that goddess-like superstar will eventually die tragically in my hands makes me feel so happy inside. The old man nodded. Finally, he looked around and said in a deep voice, What we're going to do this time will cause a sensation in the whole country and the world. So everyone keep your spirits up. Even if we die in this operation, it'll be worth it as long as our plan succeeds. Worth it. Agreed. The other 14 nodded heavily. Each and every one of them showed an aura of facing death with equanimity. These people were perverted and had twisted personalities. They were filled with hatred for the world and everyone in the world. Therefore, they didn't take their own life and death seriously. Although they were afraid of death, they were willing to die together if they could destroy more humans. At the Public Security Department of Shanghai. At the Criminal Case Conference Center. The head of the Criminal Police Unit, Zhao Ronghua, held a cigarette between his fingers with a particularly solemn expression. In the conference room, dozens of the Criminal Police Unit's backbone were receiving their assigned tasks. At the same time, the head of the Armed Police Unit, the head of the Intelligence Department, and Liu Changxi from the Imperial Capital's Security Department also attended the conference. Each and every one of them had a very solemn expression, and their hearts were full of worries. Now, the most important thing was the intelligence. But now, apart from sending people to monitor Biao and a girl, they didn't have much information about the members of this very dangerous group. I suggest that we immediately send the police to completely seal off Zhang Xinya's concert venue. We'll relieve the security guards who were originally in charge of the concert. Also, we'll conduct a comprehensive security check on the entire venue in advance. Once we find any suspicious people, we'll immediately control them and investigate any suspicious issues. Zhao Ronghua sighed and said with a serious expression. Liu Changxi shook his head and said, Our mission this time is to ensure that Zhang Xinya's concert goes smoothly. On the other hand, we must find those thugs. Otherwise, this crisis can be avoided. But what about next time? What should we do if they carry out terrorist activities again? Zhao Ronghua said, Minister Liu, the situation this time is too dangerous. We don't have much information about the other party at all. During the concert, there will be thousands of fans. How can we find those dangerous people from thousands of people? You must know that a little carelessness can put the lives of thousands of fans in danger. Those thugs will definitely find a way to enter the concert venue in advance before they act, said Liu Changxi. If they use weapons of mass destruction, they will definitely get in ahead of time. We can eliminate our elites and carry out a comprehensive investigation before the fans enter the venue. Once we find any dangerous items, we'll immediately clean them up. Also, we'll send some people to mix with those security guards and carry out a strict investigation. As long as we're professional and have sharp eyes, we can find those thugs from the crowd and kill or capture them. Minister Liu, even if we have a very specific arrangement, there will still be risks, said Zhao Ronghua. Once our security issues fail and a major safety accident occurs, we'll all be in a miserable state. Liu Changxi coldly said, I must find those extremists even if I have to lose my job. How many people have died in their hands in the major cases in the past few years? I can't let them get away with it anymore. Nor can I endure the torment and give them more time to endanger the citizens. Zhao Ronghua hesitated for a moment before he finally slapped the table and said in a deep voice, If that's the case, then I'll accompany Minister Liu in this madness. I'll personally lead a team to catch up with the police. In the early morning of the next day, at the Shanghai railway station, A group of energetic men and women carrying backpacks walked out of the station. Soon after, they were greeted by the people outside and left in a car. Blue Star Villa Complex. Tan Xiu quietly stood on the steps of the villa's entrance, looking at the 40 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall lined up neatly below. Among them, 30 were men and 10 were women. Welcome to Shanghai. Being sent by Gu Xiaoxue shows that you're all very outstanding talents. I need your help this time. Tan Xiu glanced at the crowd and solemnly said, Who's the person in charge of the 40 of you? I'm Xingli, boss. A burly man stood out from the crowd and said with a respectful look on his face, Your task this time is to ensure the safety of the big star Zhang Xinya's concert tomorrow night. Tan Xiu nodded. According to the information I got, a group of extremists are planning to carry out dangerous activities at her concert. If they succeeded, many people would die. So, on the one hand, you have to ensure that the concert goes smoothly, and on the other hand, you have to do everything you can to find those extremists, control or kill them. Do you have any specific information on those extremists, boss? Xingli asked. No. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, You can only find them by yourselves. I know what all of you have experienced abroad, so I think you will understand your opponents this time. Today's 3 chapters have been released. Weekly asking for monthly votes _. Chapter 455. Following Tan Xiu's arrangement, the 40 experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall left the Blue Star Villa complex and rushed to the New World Center in Shanghai. They used to be assassination experts, and they were all powerful people with extremely strong experience in crime. They understood the hearts of those criminals. Therefore, Tan Xiu felt at ease with their ability to find those extremists. Furthermore, the reason why he felt more at ease was that he still had a radar monitoring device. His spiritual sense. He could find hidden dangers as long as he strolled around the venue a few times during Zhang Xinya's concert. Whether it was a weapon or a suspicious person, even if they revealed some clues, they couldn't escape his spiritual sense. Morning. Tan Xiu was attending classes at school. To his satisfaction, his teacher in charge, Han Qinggu, still hadn't come to school. He heard that she would return to school after October 1st. Afternoon. Tan Xiu had an elective course. Since his elective course was economics, it ended at 4 p.m. Inside the classroom. As the teacher left, Yukai patted Tan Xiu's shoulder and asked, Big Bro Tang, let's go to the New World Center together. It's just the right time. We can also find a place to have supper after the concert. I'm sorry. I have other things to do, so I'll be late. Tan Xiu shook his head. You go first. I'll treat you to supper tonight. Yukai winked at Tan Xiu and asked with a grin. Are you going with that Belle Lulu? Your mind is really unhealthy, said Tan Xiu contemptuously. Don't tell me you don't have any other thoughts besides beauties? Yukai raised his middle finger and said, Big Bro Tang, I now know how shameless you are. All right, you go enjoy your luck with the ladies, and I'll be an ascetic monk. See you at the concert. Tang Xiu stopped him and stretched out his hand. Give me your car keys. Yukai stared blankly, and was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Come on, you have so many luxury cars in your garage, yet you still want my car key? Tan Xiu asked back. Don't you think those cars are a bit flashy? If I drove those cars out and someone saw me, who knows what kind of news would appear tomorrow? Hurry up, don't waste time. Yukai took out the car key and helplessly said, Big Bro Tang, I really admire you now. I can't even become famous if I want to, but you're hiding here and there because of your fame, desperately trying to keep a low profile. You really don't know how lucky you are. Tan Xiu couldn't be bothered to say more since their philosophies were different. After catching the car key thrown by Yukai, the two of them left the teaching building. Tan Xiu asked where Yukai's car was parked, rushed there, and quickly drove away in his BMW. Because the concert would start at 7 o'clock, the fans would enter at 6 o'clock, so he needed to use his divine sense to find out the danger in the venue before the fans entered. Shanghai New World Center. It was located in the second busiest area of Shanghai, only slightly inferior to Jiangtan. The New World Center occupied a large area, enough to accommodate more than 50,000 people. It was also the best place to hold large-scale events in Shanghai. Tan Xiu drove to the nearby area and found a large shopping mall. He parked the car in the mall's underground parking lot, and then walked toward the New World Center. It was because the number of fans coming from all over the world was too large, and the beautiful figures of those fans could be seen everywhere. On the way, he bought a cap with Zhang Xinya's pattern printed on it. Many people discovered his identity due to his appearance. Finally, it took him some effort to get rid of those people. At the East Gate, Tan Xiu looked at the long line of fans as well as the dozens of security personnel at the gate to maintain order. He immediately dialed Lu Changxi's number and walked past the fans in the long line. "Hey, what are you doing? Go to the back and line up." A security personnel came to greet him and shouted at Tan Xiu. Immediately, the fans in the front of the line looked at Tan Xiu with unkind expressions. Many people even showed disdainful eyes, as if silently criticizing Tan Xiu for not lining up. Tan Xiu said, "I'm waiting for someone." The security personnel frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you waiting for?" Tan Xiu said, "The person I'm waiting for should come out soon. If he doesn't appear in 3 minutes, I'll leave immediately." The security personnel hesitated for a moment and no longer spoke. However, his vigilant eyes kept lingering on Tan Xiu. More than a minute later, a middle-aged woman in a suit with a work card hanging on her neck came out from the East Gate. She strode to Tan Xiu and respectfully said, "Mr. Tang, Chief Lu asked me to take you in." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded. The security personnel looked at Tan Xiu, and then at the woman in the suit. Finally, he turned around and walked to the side. The fans who originally looked at Tan Xiu with disdainful eyes suddenly showed envy. They entered the venue. Tang Xiu followed the woman into the venue. After looking around, he found that there were already a lot of security personnel patrolling around, while a lot of men and women wearing work cards were scattered around the venue, observing the situation in the surroundings without batting an eyelid. "Where's Lu Changxi?" asked Tan Xiu. "Chief Lu is arranging something backstage." "I'll take you there," said the woman. "No need." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Help me get a work card like yours. I'll take a stroll around, and if necessary, I'll contact him again." The woman hesitated for a moment. Then she took out her mobile phone and took a photo of Tan Xiu. She then nodded and said, "Please wait for me. I'll be right back." 4 or 5 minutes later, the woman took a work card and came to Tan Xiu. She handed it over and said, "Mr. Tang, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." "All right." Tan Xiu watched the woman leave. Then he casually observed the surrounding environment. At the same time, he instantly released his spiritual sense, covering a radius of 200 to 300 meters. Just 2 or 3 seconds later, Tang Xiu furrowed his brows because he found a plastic box more than 120 meters away on the left side of the range of his spiritual sense. The inside of the plastic box was very small, about the size of a cigarette box. It was attached to the bottom of a chair and was fixed with tape. However, there was a needle inside the plastic box that was moving. A bomb? Although Tan Xiu had never seen a real bomb, he had seen it many times in the movies. However, he didn't immediately inform Lu Changxi. Instead, he casually strolled over there. Moreover, when the people around him frowned and showed unpleasant expressions, he directly sat on the edge of the row of chairs. He looked around. He deliberately set up a maze. Half a minute later, when no one around paid attention to him, he pretended to tie his shoelaces again. He bent down and glanced at the location of the bomb. Then he stood up and strolled around again. Half a minute later, as his divine sense continued to move, another similar bomb was discovered by his divine sense. Silently remembering the location, he moved again. Time flew by. 10 minutes later, Tan Xiu circled around the back row. He found 6 bombs in the places that his spiritual sense had just covered. Then his speed began to accelerate. While walking, he used his spiritual sense to observe. More than 20 minutes later, he had searched the entire venue with his spiritual sense. The final confirmed number of bombs was 14. As he walked toward the backstage of the venue, he dialed Lu Changxi's phone number. "Hello, Tan Xiu?" Lu Changxi's voice came out of the phone. Department Head Lu, now listen to every word I'm going to say clearly, said Tang Xiu. Also, remember all the letters and numbers I said clearly. There's something suspicious under seat 0466 in A1 area. There's also something under seat 1135 in A1 area. There's also something under seat 3673 in A2 area. There's also seat 1247 in B1 area, 6940 in B2 area, and C area. Tan Xiu said 16 places in one breath and walked near the performance stage. Just as he was about to tell Lu Changxi that he had finished, his complexion suddenly changed. He then said, there's also something suspicious in the middle of the performance stage. As for what I've said, please lead some people to investigate. Lu Changxi was silent for a few seconds and then said, I'll send someone to check it now. All right. Tan Xiu hung up the phone and walked into the backstage corridor from the side door. His pace was very slow, and his spiritual sense was always released outside. He checked every position and every area, not even the most remote places were spared. At this time, Lu Changxi was leading two backbones of the security bureau as they walked into the venue from the side door in the other direction. At his side, the young man who had seen Tan Xiu said with a dissatisfied look, Chief Lu, I think we don't need to pay attention to Tan Xiu. He's just here to make trouble. We're in a critical period now, so we should pay more attention to the surrounding situation. Once there's a suspicious person or a suspicious problem, we can immediately solve it. I know he'll give us trouble, but we can't ignore any problem in our line of work, said Lu Changxi lightly. Let's take a look at the places he gave us first. If there's no problem, I'll talk to him. The young man nodded and said, Seat 0466 in A1 area. I'll go and have a look. Lu Changxi nodded and looked at Area B. A minute later, the young man came to the front of Seat 0466 in A1 area. When he squatted on the ground and looked at the chair, he found that there was nothing on the ground. Due to his profession, he had good investigative skills, so he subconsciously touched the bottom of the chair twice. However, his body slightly stiffened. He felt that his hand had touched something and immediately knelt on the ground. He lay down and looked at the thing he had just touched. Tape? Box? How could there be such a thing under this chair? Moreover, it seemed that someone deliberately placed it here. Chapter 456. The youth's complexion greatly changed. He quickly pressed the switch of the wireless headset and hurriedly said, Chief Lu, we found something under Seat 0466 in the A1 area. I can't tell what it is, but it's a box the size of a cigarette box. It's fixed on the seat with a scotch tape. Wait for me. Lu Changxi had yet to go to the other place Tan Xiu mentioned when he suddenly heard the youth's words. His complexion immediately changed, and he strode toward Seat 0466 in the A1 area. When he came to the youth's side, he immediately squatted down and asked, Have you checked it? What is it? The youth had already pulled out the small black box from the bottom of the chair. Upon hearing Lu Changxi's words, disbelief flashed in his eyes as he muttered to himself, There's a slight pointer sound inside and a trace of gunpowder smell. If my judgment is correct, this should be a bomb, and it's very likely to be a time bomb. Lu Changxi's complexion greatly changed. He suddenly recalled the dozens of seat locations Tan Xiu reported to him, and quickly called through the wireless headset. Explosion-proof team members immediately rushed to Seat 0466 in the A1 area. There's a suspicious explosive found here. After saying that, he carefully took the small black box from the youth's hand and put it to his ear to listen and smell the smell on it. He then nodded and said, It should be correct. This is indeed a time bomb placed by someone. Quickly send some people to the other areas Tan Xiu mentioned. If this is really a time bomb, and if all the places Tan Xiu mentioned have this thing, then I'm afraid we'll be in big trouble. The youth's expression turned particularly solemn. He recalled the words he used to question Tan Xiu and the disdain he felt inside. His heart was beating fast. If this small box was really a time bomb, then he would lose all his face this time. Quickly, more than a dozen members of the explosion-proof team hurried over. After the experts checked it, they finally determined that it was indeed a small time bomb. However, An elite member of the explosion-proof team found through disassembly that this time bomb was very powerful despite being very small. The several explosive materials added to it were absolutely of an extremely high level. Director Liu, it's just a very small time bomb. If it finally explodes, everyone within a 50-meter radius will have a very small chance of surviving. Everyone within a radius of 50 to 100 meters will be seriously injured or lightly injured. The elite of the bomb squad said solemnly with an ugly expression. Lu Changxi's face was slightly pale. At this time, he finally realized that the extremists had already started to take action, and many of their methods had already been set up. Sir, there's something suspicious under seat 1135 in A1 zone. Reporting, suspicious item found under seat 3673 in A2 zone. Report, a suspicious item has been found under seat 1247 in zone B1. Sir, B2 zone 6940, put it down. Lu Changxi's body slightly trembled as he heard the reports coming from the wireless headset. He shouted, "Immediately send all the discovered items to the front of the stage." The bomb squad members immediately took all the time bombs away from the concert venue. "Oh right, there are more people below the stage. Send someone to look for them." Yes. A large number of police officers, members of the security department, and members of the bomb squad were all busy. They quickly gathered the time bombs together and put them into boxes made of special materials. Lu Changxi took a deep breath and dialed Tan Xiu's cell phone number. "Tan Xiu, I want to see you. Now. Give me 3 minutes. I'll see you at the stage." Tan Xiu said and directly hung up the phone. At this time, he was standing in front of a trash can. Using his divine sense, he found several glass bottles with blood stains in the trash can, as well as half a box of scattered thumbtacks. He still remembered that when he checked the auditorium before, he found some thumbtacks. Although the places where the thumbtacks were placed were very hidden, if the audience sat on them and moved around, they would still be easily pricked by the thumbtacks. At first, he didn't care too much about it. After all, even if those thumbtacks were pricked on a person's body, it wouldn't cause much harm. At most it would be like an ant bite, giving a faint pain. However, the blood stains in the glass bottles were thrown together with the half box of thumbtacks, which made him think more about it. Back at the stage, Tan Xiu looked at the gloomy Lu Changxi and said, "Director Lu, have you taken out the things from the places I told you?" Lu Changxi nodded silently and said, "All of them have been taken out. There are still a few that haven't been sent here. Tan Xiu, after the elite inspection of the bomb squad, it has been determined that these things are time bombs. Thanks to you this time. If you didn't call me, I'm afraid it would have been difficult for us to find these time bombs under such a dense auditorium. Furthermore, if we didn't find them and they exploded during Zhang Xinya's concert, this place would have turned into hell on earth." Tan Xiu said, "It's good that we found them in advance. We also found time bombs in several places backstage. The specific location is..." After listening, Lu Changxi immediately issued an order to send someone to rush there. Immediately, he looked at Tan Xiu with an inconceivable expression and asked, "Tan Xiu, can you tell me how you found these time bombs?" When Tan Xiu called Lu Changxi and told him the location of the time bombs, he had already thought of the wording, so he calmly said, "I have a very special ability. My hearing is more than 10 times better than others. Furthermore, my sense of distance is beyond the imagination of ordinary people, so I was able to judge the location of these things through the movement of the pointers in the small boxes." "That's amazing." Lu Changxi was shocked. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, "Director Lu, I hope you can keep this secret for me." Lu Changxi heavily nodded. His eyes turned a bit fiery as he looked at Tan Xiu and said, "Tan Xiu, would you like to join our security department? I promise you that I'll give you the best treatment in the ministry if you're willing to join. Also, I can guarantee that you'll definitely have a meteoric rise in the future." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Sorry, I'm not interested." Lu Changxi quickly said, "Don't be in a hurry to refuse, Tan Xiu. Think about it carefully. Also, I'll personally visit Senior Tang. I hope he..." Tan Xiu directly said, "If you go to see my grandpa because of this matter, I'm 100% not going to join your security department. Also, I'm still a college student and have a small business, so I don't have time to do other things. If I want to join in the future, I'll at least wait until I graduate from college. Lu Changxi was silent for a moment and then said, I'll keep your words in mind. Tan Xiao didn't want to talk about this topic anymore. He thought for a moment and then asked, Director Lu, I also found a strange phenomenon, but I can't figure it out. I wonder if you can help me dispel it? Lu Changxi was confused and asked, What's the problem? Tan Xiao said, When I was strolling around, I inadvertently found that there were some gaps in some of the seats. There seemed to be some thumbtacks in those gaps. The needle tips were pointed up, but they couldn't hurt anyone at all. However, I found half a box of thumbtacks scattered in a trash can in a remote corner of the back corridor, as well as several glass bottles with bloodstains inside. Lu Changxi stared blankly and his complexion instantly changed. A horrified expression burst out from his eyes as he exclaimed, Tan Xiao Yu, where did you see those thumbtacks? Take me there quickly. Damn it, those damned bastards, they're really capable of using all sorts of despicable methods. I can take you there, Director Lu, but you haven't answered me yet. What's the situation? Tan Xiao curiously asked. There was an explosion in a park a few years ago, said Lu Changxi hurriedly. On that day, many of the chairs in the park had thumbtacks placed on them. The needle tips of the thumbtacks were very small. If you sat on the chair and didn't move, the chance of being pricked was very small. But as long as you moved, it was very likely that you would be pricked. 227. I'll never forget this number. According to the statistics, 227 tourists were pricked by the thumbtacks. One of them was a famous medical professor in our country. He accompanied his grandson to play in the park that day. After the medical professor was pricked, he took out the thumbtacks from a crack on the bench. The tip of the thumbtacks was smeared with blood. He didn't take it seriously at that time, but not long after, his body started to feel uncomfortable. AIDS. He was later diagnosed with AIDS, so he associated it with the matter of being pricked by the thumbtacks in the park. Then he found out that there were a lot of cases of AIDS that had just been diagnosed in the local area. He carefully inquired about it, and found out that 227 people went to the park on the same day as him. Most of them saw the explosion in the park. Tan Xiao was dumbfounded as he listened to Lu Changxi's words. His heart was full of horror. It must be known that he had found at least thousands of thumbtacks in the auditorium with his spiritual sense. If each thumbtack pricked a person, wouldn't there be thousands of people infected with the AIDS virus? Those extremists are simply deranged. They all deserve to die. Tan Xiao took a deep breath as a cold killing intent erupted from the bottom of his heart. Lu Changxi was also full of hatred as he said, That's right. They really deserve to die. Tan Xiao, quickly tell me the location where the thumbtacks were found. I'll immediately send someone to clean those thumbtacks. Otherwise, once tens of thousands of fans come in, the situation will be unimaginable. Tan Xiao looked at the time and said, It's a bit late. There's only half an hour left before the fans enter the venue. It's very difficult to clean all the thumbtacks in the venue within half an hour. Lu Changxi took a deep breath and immediately ordered through the wireless headset. Everyone pay attention. Contact the concert organizer and postpone the concert for an hour. The time for the audience to enter the venue will also be postponed for an hour. There's a crisis in the venue. Please pay attention to confidentiality, and let the staff go outside to explain to the fans. Chapter 457. At the backstage of the concert venue, Zhang Xinya had arrived more than an hour ago. At this time, the backstage staff were busy preparing various costumes, props, and so on for her concert performance. She was also having her makeup done by several makeup artists. Miss Zhang, can I bother you for a bit? The middle-aged woman from the security department strode into the dressing room and came to Zhang Xinya's side. Zhang Xinya got up without hesitation and said, No problem. Immediately after, the two of them left the dressing room and came to the vacant room next door. The middle-aged woman then said, Miss Zhang, the leader said that the concert will be postponed for an hour, and the fans will also have to enter the venue an hour later. Minister Lu originally wanted to come and talk to you in person, but he can't come because of a major event. What happened? Asked Zhang Xinya hurriedly. We found a lot of time bombs in the auditorium, as well as thumbtacks with HIV, said the middle-aged woman. All the time bombs have been dismantled and secretly sent away, but our people are still checking the thumbtacks with HIV one by one. Zhang Xinya's expression greatly changed. Although she knew that there would be extremists causing trouble in tonight's concert, she didn't expect that these extremists would be so cruel that they even used time bombs. However, she realized something and quickly asked, "That's not right. HIV's transmission route is very special. Even if it's smeared on the thumbtacks, wouldn't the probability of someone being infected by the thumbtacks be very small?" "Why?" The middle-aged woman forced a smile and said, "We won't be so nervous if it's blood with HIV. Because of the time and the factor of the virus escaping, the probability of others being infected by the thumbtacks is indeed very small. But there are some very powerful biologists among these extremists. The blood of HIV patients smeared on the thumbtacks has been modified by a special virus and bacteria. Not only will the toxin of HIV not dissipate over time, but it will also become more virulent. Any ordinary person infected by it will be unable to avoid being harmed. In fact, we found this new type of HIV a few years ago, but many domestic experts have been unable to solve this problem so far. If it's really so terrifying, then wouldn't it be too easy for them to harm people?" asked Zhang Xinya in horror. "We have speculated that even if those extremists want to create a large number of new HIV viruses, it won't be easy." The middle-aged woman shook her head. "Otherwise, with their cynicism towards society, I'm afraid they would have already used this virus on a large scale." Upon hearing this, Zhang Xinya's tense heart slowly calmed down. She nodded and asked, "Have your people caught those extremists?" "Not yet." The middle-aged woman shook her head. "We haven't even found out when they snuck into the concert venue and how they did it. But don't worry. Our security department, the police, and the armed police are already waiting for them. As long as they dare to appear, we will bring them to justice." Zhang Xinya nodded, but the worry in her heart didn't lessen. After hesitating for a moment, she asked, "Is Tan Xiu here?" The middle-aged woman said, "He's already here. In fact, Mr. Tang was the one who discovered the time bomb hidden in the venue and the thumbtacks placed on the seats." "Tan Xiu found it?" Zhang Xinya was surprised. The middle-aged woman said, "He's very powerful. He's now with Minister Lu to carefully investigate the security issues of the concert venue." Upon hearing this, Zhang Xinya immediately felt relieved. She had seen a lot of Tan Xiu's means and knew that Tan Xiu was a very powerful person. This time, he was the one who found the time bomb and the thumbtacks with the HIV virus, which showed that he was more powerful than she had imagined. With Tan Xiu here, she suddenly felt very at ease. In the audience seats of the concert venue, nearly 100 people from the security department and the police were carefully investigating. Because Lu Changxi had personally issued an order to check every seat, everyone was very busy. "Speed up the investigation. Be very careful." Lu Changxi stood beside Tan Xiu and quickly ordered through the wireless headset. Tan Xiu, with a cigarette between his fingers, quietly leaned on the stage with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Through the means of those extremists, Tan Xiu didn't believe that they only had these two plans. Perhaps they were also aware that the time bomb and the HIV virus had a chance of being discovered in advance, so they should also be planning other ruthless means. But what kind of means would it be? Although Tan Xiu had a lot of experience, it was almost all from the time when he was in the immortal world. In this high-tech era, he was not very clear about the various dangerous means. "Chief Lu, you go ahead with your work. I'm going out for a stroll. Maybe there will be other discoveries." Tan Xiu extinguished the cigarette butt and threw it into the trash can not far away. Lu Changxi quickly said, "Tan Xiu, I'll send 2 people to protect you in secret." "No need." Tan Xiu waved his hand. Lu Changxi stared blankly. Looking at Tan Xiu's back as he directly left, he pondered for a moment, and then made a gesture to the 2 middle-aged men not far away. Today, Tan Xiu's performance was too monstrous. His inconceivable special ability, as well as his meticulous mind, made Lu Changxi very satisfied. Therefore, he hoped that Tan Xiu could join the security department to serve the country and benefit the people. In such a dangerous situation today, he must ensure Tan Xiu's safety. Of course, there was another reason, and that was Tan Xiu's identity. Tan Xiu walked outside, but he was keenly aware of the two men following him. He didn't stop them, but secretly smiled bitterly in his heart. After going out from the south gate, he was not stopped because he had the work card on his neck, which gave him the right to go in and out freely. Tan Xiu looked at the 4 long queues, the expectant expressions of the fans, and the posters of Zhang Xinya in their hands, as well as the light sticks and other things. He secretly sighed in his heart at the charm of his idol. There was a huge crisis hidden in this concert, but these ordinary fans were not aware of it at all. They were filled with excitement, joy and anticipation. They were looking forward to seeing their idol in front of them, and seeing their idol's performance with their own eyes. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. This sentence suddenly came to Tan Xiu's mind. In fact, even if he and Zhang Xinya were not friends, he would have taken the initiative to help if he knew that the extremists would create a terrorist incident tonight. Although he didn't believe in the saying, saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda, he didn't want to see thousands of people die. He didn't want to see the hell-like tragedy in this peaceful era. He took out his mobile. Tan Xiu dialed Singli's number. After the call was connected, he asked in a low voice, "How is it? Did you find any suspicious people outside?" "Boss, we found 2 people. We're still monitoring them and haven't taken action yet." Singli's voice came out of the phone. Tan Xiu's expression changed as he asked in a deep voice, "The concert will be delayed for an hour, and the time for the audience to enter the venue will also be delayed for an hour. You must try your best to find out as many extremists as possible. Don't act rashly. Wait until it's almost time to enter the venue before you take action. Then you can interrogate them about the other extremists." "Understood," Singli replied seriously. However, he only paused for 2 seconds before he asked, "Boss, if these people are extremists, how should we deal with them?" "Capture them alive if you can, but kill them if you can't," said Tan Xiu. "Remember, these extremists are very dangerous, so you must pay attention to your safety." "I understand," said Singli. Tan Xiu spoke again. "Also, don't let others notice when you take action against those extremists. There are a lot of fans coming to the concert tonight. In case of bloodshed, it will cause panic and chaos among tens of thousands of people, which will be very serious." "Understood," Singli replied again. Tan Xiu hung up the phone. After releasing his spiritual sense, he slowly walked to the back of the line. He needed to secretly observe the fans who came to watch the concert. Perhaps those extremists were hidden among the fans. With the help of his spiritual sense, he was confident that he could easily detect some clues. Sure enough, when he slowly walked for nearly 150 meters and reached the middle of the 4 lines, his spiritual sense found a sharp dagger on one of the fans waiting in line. The dagger was wrapped in black leather and was fixed to the inner left thigh of that person. Tan Xiu walked 4 to 5 meters away from that person. When the person's back was facing him, he immediately took out his mobile phone and quickly took a photo of that person, and then sent it to Singli. Search. Search. Tan Xiu's spiritual sense played a great role at present. Tan Xiu noticed a total of 4 people among the tens of thousands of fans who came to line up at the north, south, east, and west gates because they were all carrying dangerous weapons. They were even fixed to the inner thigh and wrapped in leather. "It's almost time." Tan Xiu exchanged information with Singli and learned that the experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall had lurked in the vicinity of the 4 suspicious people and were secretly monitoring them. As long as the time was ripe, they could immediately take action against them. Don't mess up the formation. For lines, line up neatly. 2 young security guards holding electric batons passed by Tan Xiu. One of them pointed the electric baton at a relatively chaotic line and shouted loudly. Tan Xiu smiled. Just as he continued to walk forward, a light suddenly flashed in his mind. "Security guards? I'm really sorry. I've been attending a training event organized by the China Federation of Literary and Art in the imperial capital these days, so the update time is not very stable. I beg for your understanding, brothers and sisters. Chapter 458. What Tang Xiu couldn't figure out before was that the State Security Department and the police had sent people to secretly monitor Zhang Xinya's concert when they received the news that there might be extremists who would wreak havoc there. Yet they didn't find any suspicious people. Therefore, he couldn't figure out how those extremists sneaked into the venue and spent a lot of time to place the bombs and pushpins in the audience without anyone noticing. But now he thought of a possibility. There should be extremists in the security team. If there were security members to cover for them, it was very likely that those extremists would be able to do it. Director Liu, I have an idea. Tan Xiu dialed Liu Changxi's cell number and whispered while walking. Liu Changxi was surprised and asked, "What idea?" Tan Xiu explained his idea and finally said, "If there were no security personnel to cover for them, it would be very difficult for those extremists to sneak into the venue and make those arrangements with the people from your security department and the police monitoring from the outside. Do you want to send someone to secretly investigate all the security personnel at the concert tonight?" Liu Changxi was silent for more than 10 seconds before he slowly said, "Tan Xiu, you're right. We were negligent before. Those security personnel are from the well-known Golden Shield Security Company in Shanghai, and some of them are security guards sent by their partners. If there were extremists mixed in and they acted as a cover, it would make sense that someone had secretly planted time bombs and pushpins in the venue. I'll send someone to investigate now. No matter how difficult it is, once we find suspicious people, we'll immediately secretly control them." Tan Xiu said, "Tell your people to be careful. Those extremists are very dangerous. I'm afraid they'll launch a suicide attack if they find out that they're exposed." "I know what I'm doing." Liu Changxi's voice was heard. On the roof of a skyscraper 1.5 kilometers away from the New World Center, a white-haired old man was holding a military telescope and observing the situation around the New World Center. Beside him, Old Wolf was smoking a cigarette and playing with a Desert Eagle pistol in his hand. "Old Wolf, I don't know why, but I feel a little uneasy." Old Wolf raised his head slightly and said with an indifferent expression, "There's nothing practical about it. It's just that your psychological quality is not good enough. I don't care about success or failure. Even if I fail, it's just death. All these years we've fought with the police and the security department, and we've made them suffer. You don't feel at ease now, it's just that you haven't played as big as you did today." The old man put down the binoculars and turned to look at Old Wolf. A smile appeared on his aged face as he said, "Old Wolf, I've always been fine. Why do you hate humans? Why does he hate this country?" Old Wolf coldly snorted. "My sister starved to death in an orphanage. My younger brother was mistakenly arrested and sent to prison. He was only released after 9 years. On the day he was released, he got into a car accident. The money I used to go abroad was the compensation for my brother's imprisonment. The culprit who killed my brother ran away." The old man clicked his tongue and sighed. "Tragic, very tragic." Old Wolf asked indifferently, "What about you?" The old man smiled and looked to the distant north. After a long time he lightly said, "You should know about the infectious disease that caused panic in the country more than a decade ago, right? My wife just had an ordinary fever, yet she was caught and locked up in the quarantine area with those real infectious disease patients. As a result, she died, leaving me and my son behind." Old Wolf asked, "You have a son?" The old man smiled. "I do. If he didn't die, he should be about the same age as you this year." Old Wolf asked, "How did he die?" The old man rubbed his cheek and said, "He wanted to be a good person, and I educated him to be a very good and kind person. He graduated from the military school and joined the army to serve the country. In the end, he didn't die on the battlefield, but died in a flood in a certain year. Ha ha ha, it's ironic, isn't it? I'm still a family member of a martyr." Old Wolf indifferently said, "It turns out that you're not a cynic from the very beginning." Old Wolf sneered. "Who the hell is a cynic from the very beginning? It's all because they force me to. My wife died so I can bear it. But my son was such a good boy, yet he died. I'm the only old man alive. I'm so angry. There's a saying that good people don't live long, while scourges last for 1,000 years. Since good people don't have good rewards, then why should I be a good person? Good people should die early, so that I can go to another world to accompany my wife and child. Old Wolf fell into silence. However, the murderous aura emanating from him became a lot stronger. Beep beep. The old man's cell phone beeped a few times. When he took it out and read the text message, he immediately furrowed his brows and said with a cold face, Zhang Xinya's concert will be delayed for an hour, and the fans will also be delayed for an hour. Damn it. When will the time bomb explode? Old Wolf indifferently said, Don't worry. I'm afraid all the fans will have entered the venue by then. Even if the concert hasn't started yet, thousands of people will be killed. All right. Old Wolf nodded indifferently. An hour later, in front of the concert venue's stage, Tan Xiu looked at Lu Changxi, who was striding toward him, and slightly furrowed his brows, because Lu Changxi's expression was particularly solemn at this time. Did something happen? Lu Changxi nodded and said, Yeah, we've found 2 suspicious people. One of them is a fugitive who has been working as a security guard for the Golden Shield Security Company for 4 or 5 years. As for the other person, although we've investigated his identity, we found that it's fake. In other words, there's a very serious problem with him. When our people were trying to catch him, he seriously injured one of our members in the fight. When he was about to be caught, he stabbed himself in the heart with a knife and died. Tan Xiu nodded and said, Being able to find it means that we've achieved some results. Death is death. For such a cynical extremist, death is the end of all troubles. Lu Changxi forced a smile and said, What I'm most worried about now is that if those extremists are like that suicidal guy and have no fear of death, then we'll be in big trouble. I'm sure you've heard about many terrorist cases abroad. Those suicide attacks can cause great harm. Tan Xiu frowned and said, You mean? I'm afraid that they'll really go crazy recklessly and rush to the New World Center with bombs on their backs, said Lu Changxi. That would be a big problem. The power of the bombs is too great. If they have a lot of explosives, especially high explosive ones, then we'll be done for. Tan Xiu thought for a while and said, It's not impossible for such a situation to happen. If so, I think we should take some action. It's best for those policemen and armed police officers to patrol and inspect the New World Center in all directions. It's best to block all major traffic arteries within a 2-kilometer radius. That will alert the enemy, Lu Changxi said. Though it will alert the enemy, it's better than mending the pen after the sheep is lost, said Tan Xiu lightly. Lu Changxi pondered for half a minute and then helplessly said, All right. Even if we can't bring all the extremists to justice this time, we must guarantee the safety of the citizens. I'll arrange it now. After that, he then turned around and left. Tan Xiu quietly watched his back until he disappeared into the side door. Tan Xiu then looked at the fans who were constantly pouring into the venue. He took out his mobile phone and sent a message to Xingli, Do it. At the New World Center, a long line of people outside the East Gate was slowly moving forward. 2 female experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall quietly approached a young man who was holding a poster and moving forward with the flow of people. Hubby, what's wrong with you? One of the female experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall suddenly grabbed the young man's waist and pressed her other hand on his death acupoint. As a wisp of true essence force poured into the young man's death acupoint, the young man's pupils suddenly shrunk and his body froze. Another female expert grabbed his other arm and stabbed the young man's lower ribs with a sharp lancet. It was a very important Jichuan acupoint. Crack! The young man's wrist was crushed and his mute acupoint was also hit at the same time. Under the eyes of the surrounding people, the 2 women grabbed the young man and walked to the back of the line. The small disturbance didn't attract many people's attention. When the 2 women grabbed the young man and appeared at the back of the line, they quickly looked around and then released the young man and walked to the distance while holding hands. The South Gate. They were also 2 female experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall. When they approached the middle-aged man who was monitoring them, One of them directly grabbed his throat. The moment the middle-aged man suddenly raised his arms to cover his throat, the two women quickly retreated 4 to 5 steps back. Acting. Their acting was very good as they anxiously shouted and dragged the middle-aged man to the back of the line. The West Gate, the North Gate. It was an assassination team composed of 2 female experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall. Even though they were in the middle of the crowd, they were still able to kill the target silently. They even took away the corpses without alarming many people. Today's second chapter is presented to you. Meekly asking for a monthly vote _. Chapter 459. On the roof of a skyscraper 5 kilometers away from the New World Center, Old Wolf was still sitting there, smoking one cigarette after another. The old man was holding a pair of binoculars, constantly watching the east and south gates of the New World Center. At this moment, 2 average-looking middle-aged men of average height came to the roof carrying a black suitcase. One of them silently opened the black suitcase and took out the computer and other instruments inside. "You're late, Turtle Dove." The old man turned his head and coldly glanced at him. The middle-aged man who was fiddling with the computer replied without looking up, "It's good enough that I can come today. I wouldn't have participated in this operation if I didn't want to find some people to bury with my mother." A cold light flashed in the old man's eyes as he coldly said, "Turtle Dove, join our group. Unless you die, don't even think about living a peaceful life. I'll give you the best treatment among all of us, so don't let me down." Turtle Dove didn't speak again. His fingers quickly moved on the keyboard of the laptop. Rows of English letters appeared one after another, and the small windows on the computer screen gradually lit up. The small windows showed the various areas of the concert venue. "Little Joe contacted me an hour ago. He said that the time bombs we placed in the venue, as well as the thumbtacks with HIV, have been found by the security department and the police. They should have been cleaned up by now. I contacted Little Joe 3 minutes ago, but I couldn't get in touch with him. I suspect that something happened to him." Turtle Dove's eyes kept wandering back and forth on the computer screen as he casually said. The old man's complexion changed. Just as he was about to speak, his body suddenly trembled. "Damn. Something happened to Buckteeth. Those 2 women. No, something happened to Baldy. Who the hell are those women? How did they find out?" In an instant, the other middle-aged man and Old Wolf took out their binoculars and looked toward the east and south gates. Through their observation, they saw 2 of their companions being carried by 2 women and quickly separated from the fans. Old Wolf held the binoculars and shifted his gaze from the east and south gates to the direction of a 3-story building near the center of the New World. Just as the scene in front of him kept changing, his expression suddenly changed, and disbelief and horror burst out of his eyes. How could it be him? Old Wolf wasn't afraid of death. As long as he could drag thousands of people to be buried with him, he even thought that his death would be glorious and valuable. But, looking at the figure who was squatting by the garden and smoking, his gaze sweeping over the 3-story building where his 2 companions were hiding from time to time, he became afraid. In the past, there were a few figures that were his nightmare demons. During his years abroad, he had experienced unimaginable things. He wasn't even afraid of death, but he was afraid of a few people, and the person in front of him was definitely the person he was most afraid of. The old man put down his binoculars and turned around with a gloomy expression. He looked at the fearful expression on the old wolf's face. Even though he had known the old wolf for many years, he was still shocked because he had never seen such a fearful expression on the old wolf's face. "Old Wolf, what's going on?" Old Wolf put down the binoculars in his hand and inserted the pistol in his other hand into his waist. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Give up this mission. Otherwise, we will all die, and our deaths will be worthless." The old man frowned and said, "Reason, I need a reason." Old Wolf was silent for a few seconds before he slowly said, "The devil has come to China." Turtle Dove slowly raised his head and coldly asked, "What devil?" "You're the top hacker in the country, Turtle Dove," said Old Wolf. "If I remember correctly, you once participated in the hacker battle of Planet 2 and intercepted the devil's information. How many people in the world dare to call themselves the devil, do you think? Turtledove stared blankly, and his pupils instantly contracted. He directly closed the laptop, and quickly put it into the black suitcase. He then stood up and said in a deep voice, "Old Wolf, are you talking about him? Did he really come to China?" Old Wolf pointed to the direction of the 3-story building in the distance and indifferently said, "You can see for yourself if you don't believe me. I haven't seen him for several years, but I can still recognize him even if he turns into ashes. Haven't you always wanted to know who left the scar on my left chest? It's him. He personally slaughtered 14 of us at that time. I was the only one who survived because the position of my heart is different from ordinary people." Turtledove grabbed the binoculars. When he saw the figure, his mouth twitched a few times and he bitterly said, "I didn't expect that he would appear here. If my guess is correct, I'm afraid that the 2 of us in the small building near him won't be able to survive." The old man frowned and said, "Tell me clearly, who is this devil?" "He's the devil who has been ranked first in the world's assassin list for 4 years. He's also the leader of the Hell Messenger Mercenary Corps," said Old Wolf. "The Hell Messenger Mercenary Corps only has a few members. It's said that from its establishment to its disbandment, it never had more than 10 members. Yet, such a small mercenary corps is ranked 3rd in the world's mercenary list. Even the 1st and 2nd Mercenary Corps have expressed that they want to befriend the Hell Messenger Mercenary Corporation." The old man looked surprised. He didn't know much about the assassin list and the Mercenary Corps, so he wasn't scared. Turtledove, on the other hand, looked horrified. Old Wolf's words were like a bomb exploding in his ears. After a while, Turtledove then muttered to himself, "His identity can't be exposed. He's the kind of person who will die if exposed. How dare he show up here?" Old Wolf frowned and said, "If my guess is correct, he should have been recruited by the Chinese government and changed his identity to work for them. Let's retreat. Even if we use a suicidal attack this time, I'm afraid the effect won't be that great." Turtledove nodded without hesitation. Beep, beep. The old man with a gloomy expression suddenly received a message from his mobile phone. When he grabbed his phone and opened the message, his expression changed drastically. The message was sent by Huang Lan, and there was only one word in it: run. Run. Although the old man was full of unwillingness, all the signs indicated that this was really dangerous. If the other party was really powerful, even if they used their last resort, it was likely that it wouldn't have much of an effect. "Old Wolf, notify the others to evacuate." Old Wolf heavily nodded, and took out his mobile phone to dial a number. The reason why he deeply furrowed his brows was that no one picked up the phone. Did something happen? Old Wolf hung up and dialed other people's numbers. He called 5 or 6 people in one breath, but only one of them was picked up. "Your means are very mediocre. Just wait. Death will soon befall you." A cold voice came from the mobile phone. The voice was even faster than Old Wolf's voice. Old Wolf's expression greatly changed and he asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" Beep, beep. The call ended and the busy tone answered him. The corner of Old Wolf's mouth twitched a few times, and a look of horror appeared in his eyes. He then smashed the mobile phone and hurriedly said, "I'm afraid the others are in trouble. Let's run away as fast as we can. The farther, the better." I'm afraid the chance to escape is gone." Along with the sound of a silver bell, a naughty voice came from the staircase on the rooftop. Immediately after, 2 black muzzles appeared in front of the 4 people's eyes. Immediately after, 2 middle-aged men in black suits and night vision goggles appeared. Bang bang, 2 gunshots were heard. Old Wolf and the other middle-aged man, who quickly pulled out their guns, were directly shot in the glabella and killed. The old man and Turtledove's movements instantly froze. They saw a smiling woman appear behind the 2 middle-aged men. Behind the woman, there were also 6 burly men wearing night vision goggles. "Who are you people?" The old man was very experienced. The moment Old Wolf and Turtledove were shot dead, he realized that these people in front of him were definitely not from the security department or the police. It was because they would never be so cold-blooded as to directly kill Old Wolf and Turtledove. The smiling woman clapped her hands and smilingly said, "You won't be able to guess who we are. However, you should be able to guess that you're all going to die. I really don't understand why the boss mobilized so many of us to come here with you small fries. At this moment, Turtledove's eyes were already full of fear. His body slightly shivered and he subconsciously took 2 steps back. Night Spectre, you're Night Spectre of the Hell Messenger Mercenary Corporation. The woman looked at Turtledove in surprise and curiously asked, "You know me? That's strange. Almost all the people who knew my identity are dead. How did you know?" Turtledove desperately gulped down his saliva and his legs trembled. His eyes shifted to the old man with difficulty and bitterly said, "I broke the firewall of Morse's forum and got the information of your Hell Messenger Mercenary Corporation. Although the information is very little, I've seen your photos so I remember them." Night Spectre frowned. As the smile on her face disappeared, a thick killing intent instantly filled her face. She took out a pistol and pointed it at Turtledove. "Morse was killed by us 3 years ago," she said. "We also destroyed all the information in his database. Who the hell are you?" Turtledove slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again a few seconds later, he was pointed at by the gun and knelt to the north. He kowtowed 3 times in front of everyone and muttered to himself, "Mother, I can't use the lives of thousands of people to bury with you. I'm unfilial. I'll still be your son in my next life." After saying that, he slowly got up and the fear in his eyes disappeared without a trace, replaced by a bit of coldness. "My name is Turtledove. I'm ranked 4th on the Matrix list." "The Matrix list? The world's hacker list?" "Ranked 4th. Chapter 460. Night Spectre curiously observed Turtledove for half a minute before she nodded and smilingly said, "So you're the guy who was taught a lesson by Mo On in the past." "That's right, you don't know who Mo On is, but you should know Thousand Threads, right?" Mo On is Thousand Threads. Thousand Threads? Intense hatred burst out from Turtledove's eyes. He clenched his fists and fiercely said, "I'll never forget Thousand Threads even if I become a ghost. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have been captured by Country-Wise Intelligence Bureau, and I wouldn't have been forced to serve them. I wouldn't have met that bastard Sherbiao, and I wouldn't have joined this group. I wouldn't have ended up being pointed at by you guys at gunpoint today. So you've been working for Country-Wise Intelligence Agency in the dark." Night Spectre sneered. "It seems you deserve to die even more." Puff! The bullet was fired from the muzzle, but it didn't kill Turtledove but the old man. Night Spectre looked at Turtledove, who was shivering, and suddenly smiled. "Actually, you can keep your life. But I wonder if you're willing to work for our boss." "Who's your boss?" asked Turtledove with a frown. "We belong to the Everlasting Feast Hall. You don't need to know who our boss is." Night Spectre smiled and said, "What you need to know is that once you choose to join our Everlasting Feast Hall, your life will belong to our boss. Of course, you can also choose to refuse since you'll be sent to hell to suffer endless torture. Of course, even if you choose to join our Everlasting Feast Hall, I'm afraid you'll still suffer great pain. Or perhaps you'll still go to hell amidst the pain." "I agree." Turtledove pondered for more than 10 seconds before resolutely replying. Night Spectre nodded with satisfaction and said, "Good. Since you agree, then we welcome you to join us. Country-Wise Intelligence Agency will be easy to deal with. We just need to show your corpse's photo to the higher-ups of Country-Wise Intelligence Agency, and your file will be erased." Just as her voice faded away, Night Spectre instantly appeared in front of Turtledove and grabbed a dagger. The tip of the dagger slid and blood splashed from Turtledove's chest and flowed down the left side of his face. Banjo was still quite strong-willed. Not only did he not scream, but he also didn't fall in the face of this sudden attack. As his entire face contorted, Night Spectre punched his solar system and knocked him out. "Take a picture of him, and bring him back." A middle-aged man wearing night vision goggles coldly said, "Night Spectre, this is against the rules. Boss's order was to capture or kill these extremists, he didn't say to subdue them." Banjo calmly said, "Our Everlasting Feast Hall has hundreds of core experts. We may seem to have a strong army, but we have hundreds of peripheral members who are also our backbone." Back then, when Gu, that boss, established the Everlasting Feast Hall, He said that as long as they have powerful abilities, we should try our best to subdue them if we can make them work for us. Banjo is a very powerful hacker. In today's information age, Mon is the only one in our everlasting feast hall who is very powerful in this aspect. Moreover, he was transferred away by the boss, so we lack this kind of expert. Moreover, we have captured Banjo now. As for how to deal with him in the end, we need to listen to the boss's orders. After a moment of silence, the middle-aged man said, "Then take him away and wait for the boss's order." 8 o'clock at night. The concert began. More than 40,000 fans from all over the country burst into thunderous cheers and screams along with Zhang Xinya's appearance. At the same time, explosive music and passionate singing came from behind the group of dancers. It was Zhang Xinya's voice. In the front row of the A1 auditorium, Hu Qingsong, Zhao Liang, and a group of people waved the glow sticks in their hands and shouted Zhang Xinya's name. Even Mu Weining, who had a tranquil personality, stood up with everyone with a particularly bright smile. However, there was one person who was extremely abnormal. It was Yukai. At this moment, Yukai kept glancing around, looking for Tan Xiu's figure. "Yukai, what are you looking around for? Goddess, do you still have the mood to look at other things?" Zhao Liang touched Yukai's arm and shouted, "I'm looking for Big Bro Tang. It's reasonable to say that he should come on such an occasion." Yukai replied aloud. Zhao Liang stared blankly and immediately looked around. After not finding Tan Xiu's figure, he then said aloud, "Big Bro Tang might have something else to do, but I think he'll come later." Yukai was silent for a moment before he nodded and said, "I hope he can come." Outside the south gate of the New World Center, Tan Xiu easily got rid of the 2 members of the security department who were responsible for protecting him, and appeared in the 3-story building a kilometer away. At this time, the 40 members of the Everlasting Feast Hall had all returned, and the unconscious turtle dove was still lying on the sofa. "Who is he?" asked Tan Xiu. Night Yuling came forward and respectfully said, "Boss, his name is Turtle Dove, a hacker ranked 4th in the world. He's one of the extremists you mentioned. The others were killed by us, and I'm the one who made him stay." "What about the dead extremists? What about their bodies?" asked Tan Xiu. "Our men have used corpse-decomposing liquid to destroy the evidence," answered Night Yuling. "Corpse-decomposing liquid?" Tan Xiu's expression moved. He knew that the corpse-decomposing liquid must have been given to them by Gu Yan, or Ji Qimei. After nodding, he lightly said, "I want to know the reason why you made him stay." Boss Gu. The former boss once told me when he founded the Everlasting Feast Hall. He said that we should recruit as many talented people as possible who are particularly good in certain aspects. Our Everlasting Feast Hall now has more than 500 members, but there are only about 100 core members. The rest of the peripheral members are almost all the talented people in our network in recent years. That's why I kept him alive, and am ready to listen to your arrangement. "Is there no computer expert in our Everlasting Feast Hall?" asked Tan Xiu with a frown. "Yes, there is. Mon is ranked 2nd in the world hacker ranking," answered Night Yuling. "But he was transferred away by you, and our Everlasting Feast Hall lacks such experts." "Mon is so good at hacking in the spirit domain?" asked Tan Xiu in surprise. "Yes," answered Night Yuling. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and then asked, "I want to know what means you used to subdue those talented people, just like Turtle Dove. The existence of such extremists is not only a threat to our Everlasting Feast Hall, but also a great hidden danger to the ordinary citizens." "Boss, more than half of the talents our Everlasting Feast Hall has subdued are evil people who have harmed countless people," said Night Yuling. "But after our training and transformation, not only will they be completely loyal to our Everlasting Feast Hall, but they will also get rid of their hostility and change their way of thinking. Elder Ji will use a special method to make these people's personalities change greatly." Tan Xiu thought for a while and then nodded. "Since you have a way to use him, then I'll leave him to you. Also, pry some information from him. I need to know how many of the members who participated in this extreme plan have yet to be found." "Give me half an hour, boss," said Singli seriously. "I'll give you the answer you want to know in half an hour at most." "All right, I'll be waiting," said Tan Xiao. Singly nodded and picked up Turtle Dove, who looked like a dead dog, and then left the hall. Tan Xiao walked to the window and looked at some people from the security department and the police in casual clothes outside the south gate. They seemed to be strolling around casually, but they were actually secretly vigilant. Then he said, "Your mission is almost complete. Once Singli's interrogation is over, you can withdraw and return to Jingmen Island if there's no other danger." Understood. Everyone respectfully replied. 10 minutes later, Singli came to Tan Xiao with a list of names. After handing it over, he said, "Boss, according to the number of people we eliminated tonight and the number of extremists, I found that there are still 2 people who haven't been caught yet. They are Shi Biao and Little Tanuki." Tan Xiao recalled that he had seen Shi Biao and a 17 or 18-year-old girl in the Shangri-La Hotel. That girl should be Little Tanuki. "Where are they now?" asked Tan Xiao. Turtle Dove said that he doesn't know. The only one who knows where Shi Biao and Little Tanuki are is an old man we killed before, said Singli. However, Turtle Dove said that he can locate Shi Biao and Little Tanuki's communication devices through the internet, and then determine their location. "Give him the computer and tell him to find them for me," said Tan Xiao. Quickly, Turtle Dove was brought to this room. As his equipment was placed in front of him, Tan Xiao said, "If you can find Shi Biao and Little Tanuki, I'll give you a chance to live. I'll also give you a chance to pledge your loyalty to me." "Are you the boss they mentioned?" Turtle Dove was surprised. "Yes, I am," said Tan Xiao. Turtle Dove carefully observed Tan Xiao a few times and then said, 3 minutes. I'll be able to find them in 3 minutes at most." After that, he sat straight in front of the computer, and his fingers began to tap the keyboard. "Got it." A smile appeared on Turtle Dove's face. He didn't feel that it was inappropriate to betray his former companion. He even faintly felt a bit excited because he had long disliked Shi Biao. If he could kill him, Turtle Dove even felt that these people in front of him had done a good job. "Where is it?" asked Tan Xiao. "It's 1.6 kilometers away from our current position, near the west gate of the New World Center," answered Turtle Dove. "Well done," said Tan Xiao. After that, he immediately told Singli to rush over with his men, and then he was ready to leave the hall. Looking at Tan Xiao's back, Turtle Dove suddenly said, "Boss, I can give you another piece of information." Tan Xiao stopped, turned around and asked, "What is it?" "A time bomb has been installed in the international airport lobby," said Turtle Dove. "It's a little over 8 o'clock now, and the time before the explosion is very short. I estimate that the time of the explosion should be less than half an hour." Chapter 461. Tan Xiao's expression drastically changed. He grabbed Turtle Dove's collar and asked in a deep voice, "Are you sure a time bomb has been installed at the Shanghai airport? You're not lying to me, are you?" Turtle Dove glanced at Singli at the side and said, "I dare to lie to anyone but him." Tan Xiao clenched his fists and said, "Tell me the specific location of the bomb." Turtle Dove shook his head and said, "All the bombs were installed by Old Wolf. I'm in charge of monitoring the concert site, so I don't know the specific location of the bomb." Tan Xiao took a deep breath and quickly looked at the time. Then he asked, "How long will it take to get to the airport from here?" "It'll take about an hour to get there by car," answered Turtle Dove. Tan Xiao took out his mobile and dialed Lu Changshi's number. "Where are you, Tan Xiao?" Lu Changshi's voice was heard after the connection was connected. "Don't worry about my location, Director Lu," said Tan Xiao. "I just got the news that the extremist target tonight is not only Zhang Xinya's concert. They have also installed time bombs at the Shanghai airport, and I'm afraid they're only 20 minutes away from exploding." At the backstage of the concert, Lu Changxi was standing in the corridor with a mobile phone in his hand. His pupils instantly shrunk when he heard Tan Xiao's report and his heart raced. He was horrified and hurriedly asked, "Is your information really accurate, Tan Xiao? Where are the specific locations of the time bombs?" "The information should be correct, but I don't know the specific locations," said Tan Xiao. "I'll immediately contact the Shanghai airport and tell them to find the bomb locations as fast as possible," said Lu Changxi in a deep voice. "Also, I'll send some people there as well. I'm afraid it's too late to send some people there, said Tan Xiao. However, I still need to inform the airport. Also, I've already left the New World Center to handle something in another place not far from the airport. So, tell the people at the airport to cooperate with me to find the bombs once I get there. Lu Changxi recalled Tan Xiao's special ability and was immediately pleasantly surprised. Good. I'll definitely inform them. Tan Xiao, please. Tan Xiao hung up the phone and strode outside. He then spoke to Singli. You must return to Jingmen Island immediately. Remember, you must leave quietly and don't take the train or plane, which can easily expose your identity. All right. Xingli stopped in his tracks and looked at Tan Xiao's back as he left. He quickly returned to the room and informed the people he brought to leave quickly. In the dark night, after leaving the 3-story building, Tang Xiao's figure flashed like a ghost. His speed was extremely fast. It only took him 2 minutes to reach the underground parking lot, and then he drove away at an extremely fast speed. Driving skills. Tan Xiao was now a pure driver. His eyesight and reaction speed were many times better than ordinary people. Therefore, his driving speed was simply playing with his life. On the wide road, the Land Rover Range Rover SUV was like a runaway wild horse, driving at a high speed, faintly approaching 200 kilometers per hour. Even at several red light intersections, he relied on his agile reaction and directly ran through the red light. He knew very well that he didn't have much time. Usually, it would take more than an hour by car, but he had to arrive in 20 minutes at the slowest. Therefore, his speed must be extremely fast. He even planned to abandon the car once there was a traffic jam on the road. Although his current cultivation was very low, his speed was on par with the Land Rover's speed limit when he burst out to the limit. At the Shanghai International Airport, Chu Xianglong, the highest-ranking person in charge of the airport, had just returned from a meeting in the imperial capital. 2 of the airport's top executives also followed him out of the cabin. Chu Xianglong deeply frowned while coming down from the ladder. It was because several people in charge of the airport, surrounded by a group of airport security guards, were rushing over more than 100 meters away. What's the situation? Chu Xianglong slightly tilted his head and asked the 2 airport executives behind him. I don't know. The 2 men shook their heads, their eyes full of confusion. Soon, the several airport executives surrounded by the group of security guards rushed in front of Chu Xianglong, gasping for breath. One of them, with beads of sweat on his forehead, hurriedly said, Chief Chu, there's an accident. Chu Xianglong frowned and asked in a deep voice, What happened? I just received a call from the head of the security department, informing us that a time bomb has been planted at the airport. We know that you happen to be coming back, so you can call this number back and you'll know the specific reason, said the person in charge. Chu Xianglong's expression greatly changed. He quickly dialed the number given by the person in charge. After the other party picked up, he said, This is Chu Xianglong. Who's this? I'm Lu Changxi. Half a minute later, Chu Xianglong hung up the phone with a solemn expression and immediately shouted, Immediately close all the passages in the airport. Suspend all flights and evacuate the tourists in the airport. Notify the police and the bomb disposal experts to immediately search for the time bomb in the airport. Also, inform everyone that if a man named Tan Xiao arrives, don't stop him and immediately let him enter the airport. Whatever his request is, you must fulfill it. I've already arranged it, Chief Chu. All right. Repeat it again. If a time bomb is really planted at the airport, and we can't find it within the time of the explosion and successfully defuse it, it will bring us huge losses. Therefore, everyone must act now, and be sure to seize the time. Understood. At this time, a passenger plane from the imperial capital to Shanghai was landing. It decelerated on the runway and quickly stopped at the designated helipad. A few minutes later, Li Laozhan, who had a big belly and a stout face, appeared at the cabin door. His brows were deeply furrowed as he walked step by step toward the ladder. Behind him, in addition to a young female secretary with a slender figure and a pretty face, there were also 4 bodyguards in black suits. Boss, there's an alarm. A bodyguard in a black suit vigilantly observed the surroundings and reported. Li Laozhan nodded and said, "Go find out what's going on." "Understood." The bodyguard respectfully replied. At this time, a voice sounded from the airport broadcast. "All passengers, please note that all routes at the airport are immediately closed due to a security risk at the airport. All passengers in the airport are requested to leave the airport." A security risk? Li Laozhan's complexion changed. He was well aware of what this broadcast meant. He had heard several times that similar situations had occurred at some domestic airports, and almost all of them were related to the explosion. It seems that something big is going to happen. Li Laozhan muttered to himself and immediately shouted, "Hurry up and leave the airport. Leave through the VIP passage." On the highway more than 10 kilometers away from the Shanghai airport, Tan Xiu's complexion turned extremely unsightly. What he was worried about had finally happened, a traffic jam on the road. Along the way, his speed was almost at the limit, and it even caused a few traffic accidents that were not serious. There were also a lot of traffic police in front and behind him. However, after he contacted Lu Changxi, those traffic police quickly disappeared around him. "I can only abandon the car." Looking at the traffic jam in front, although Tan Xiu was full of impatience, he quickly made a decision. After he got off the car, he quickly rushed toward the alley on the side of the road. Under the cover of the night, Tan Xiu was like the incarnation of the god of night in the dark, sprinting toward the airport at an extremely fast speed. At this time, even if one were to observe with the naked eye, one would not be able to see him flash past. Even if one stared at him carefully, one could only see an afterimage flashing by. "I'm about 10 kilometers away from the airport, and now 20 minutes have passed." Tan Xiu prayed, hoping that the time of the time bomb could be delayed. He firmly believed that as long as he could get to the airport, he could check the entire airport in a few minutes at most. After all, nothing could hide from him in the area covered by his divine sense. A few minutes later, when he was only about 2 kilometers away from the airport, he keenly noticed that there were cars driving out of the airport. There were even a lot of people carrying large and small bags running back from the roadside. It seems that the airport has taken precautions. Tan Xiu avoided the road and kept speeding up. When he appeared near the airport, he finally appeared in the night and quickly rushed to the entrance. The airport has been blocked. No one can enter. More than a dozen police officers looked at Tan Xiu with vigilance, and one of them shouted in a deep voice, "I'm Tan Xiu. I must go in," said Tan Xiu with a frown. "Tan Xiu?" The dozen police officers' expressions shifted. The one who had just stopped Tan Xiu had a change of expression and quickly said, "Are you Mr. Tang? We've been notified. You can go in immediately. Our airport leaders are." Tan Xiu didn't wait for him to finish and directly rushed inside. At the same time, he constantly released his spiritual sense, and everything within a radius of 200 to 300 meters was enveloped by his spiritual sense. When his figure appeared in the airport lobby, his expression slightly changed. 3. There are still 3 minutes and 15 seconds left before the explosion. Tan Xiu quickly glanced around and found that many police officers were looking for the time bombs everywhere. He immediately shouted, "There's a time bomb in this trash can. Quickly send someone to take it away. There's also a time bomb in the fire hose over there. Over there, in the potted plant on the left side of the passage. What are you staring blankly for? Hurry up and take the time bomb away. There are only 3 minutes left before the explosion." Immediately, more than a dozen airport police officers rushed toward the 3 places pointed by Tan Xiu. When they carefully took out the 3 black boxes, 2 bomb experts stationed at the airport quickly ran into the airport lobby. After a quick check, they finally determined that the 3 small black boxes were all specially made time bombs. Chapter 462. With a gloomy expression, Chu Xianglong and the airport police officers searched everywhere for clues of the time bombs. He received a report from his men and learned that Mr. Tan Xiu had already found 3 time bombs in the airport lobby. Not only did he not feel happy, but his heart became heavier instead. "Where's Mr. Tan Xiu?" Chu Xianglong immediately asked aloud after rushing to the airport lobby. A police officer quickly replied, Chief Chu, Mr. Tang went to Terminal B. Some of our colleagues from the police department also followed him there. Chu Xianglong didn't hesitate and rushed toward Terminal B. As for the 3 time bombs that had been found, he didn't need to worry about them since they had been handed over to the bomb disposal experts. Airport Terminal B. At this time, the B-11 terminal had become empty. It was the complete opposite of the lively scene half an hour ago. Only some special police officers and airport police officers were investigating the bomb. What worried Tan Xiu was that they had found a time bomb. A total of 5 time bombs? Tan Xiu finally determined the specific location of the time bomb through his divine sense. However, there was only 1 minute and 20 seconds left before the explosion. Everyone leave immediately. Quickly. Tan Xiu strode toward the nearest time bomb security. He shouted loudly as he rushed there, and quickly took out the time bomb. Who are you? A special police officer shouted loudly. I'm Tan Xiu. Quickly carry out the order. Everyone leave immediately, said Tan Xiu. The special police officer stared blankly for a moment. The others also quickly rushed outside after hearing it. Although they didn't know Tan Xiu's specific identity, they knew Tan Xiu's name. The order they received was that once Tan Xiu arrived, he must immediately obey their orders. The 4th one. Tan Xiu's heart fiercely twitched a few times. When he took the 4th time bomb, there were only 25 seconds left before the time bomb would explode. The distance between him and the last time bomb was 200 to 300 meters. If he sprinted to the location of the time bomb, took it, and left as fast as he could, it would be too late to throw these time bombs into an open space. So be it. Tan Xiu sighed in his heart, turned around, and sprinted outside. Soon he sprinted inside the airport and rushed towards the runway from an open window. In the brightly lit environment, star power revolved under his feet, and he almost sprinted to the center of the airport runway. He threw out the 4 time bombs in his hands and ran away when there were only a few seconds left before the explosion. Boom 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 boom. 5 time bombs exploded at the same time. In addition to the explosion in Building B, the aftermath of the explosion of the 4 time bombs on the airport runway hit Tan Xiu's back. It even pushed him, who had already sprinted nearly 100 meters away, into the air, and then he fell heavily to the ground. Phew, Tan Xiu let out a long sigh of relief. The power of the 4 time bombs exploding at the same time made him look terrible. With his current level of invulnerability, if he were to be directly blown up by the 4 time bombs, he would probably be injured, or even seriously injured. After getting up from the ground, Tan Xiu quickly returned to the building. When he saw the messy scene inside, he secretly felt lucky. He had actually rushed over from the New World Center already prepared for the worst, which was that the airport would be blown up, but not many people would be hurt. Now it seemed that, although the explosion had ended, at least there were no casualties. The airport and the runway were the only things that were lost. Tan Xiu believed that the Shanghai airport could afford such a loss. Clap, clap, clap. A series of hurried footsteps came from the corridor in the distance. When Tan Xiu looked over, he saw a middle-aged man in a suit and tie, who had the aura of a superior, running over with dozens of police officers. Are there any casualties here? Chu Xianglong saw that Tan Xiu was the only one in the messy hall, and quickly asked aloud. No. Everyone has been evacuated. Tan Xiu shook his head. Chu Xianglong's tense heart finally calmed down. He knew that they were in trouble the moment the explosion sounded. However, what he was most worried about was the casualties. Now that he heard the answer, he finally nodded and asked aloud. Who are you? You shouldn't be one of the airport's police officers or staff, right? I'm Tan Xiu, replied Tan Xiu in a deep voice. Chu Xianglong was startled and quickly greeted him. Hello, Mr. Tang. I've received a call from Minister Liu. Thank you for everything you've done for the airport. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, It's every citizen's duty to maintain the country's public security and protect the country's property. You don't need to be so polite. That's right, I still don't know who you are. Chu Xianglong stretched out his hand and said, I'm Chu Xianglong, the general manager of the Shanghai airport and also the person with the highest authority. Mr. Tang, I already know what you've done just now. In any case, I still want to thank you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid something big would have happened to the Shanghai airport. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and shook his head. I told you that you're welcome. Fortunately, those extremists only installed 8 time bombs here. Else it would have been too late no matter how fast I raced against time. Extremists? Chu Xianglong's expression changed. Mr. Tang, I heard an explosion coming from the airport runway just now. Tan Xiu interrupted him and said, there are 4 time bombs over there. I found them from here and threw them there. If those 4 time bombs were to explode here, I'm afraid more than half of this building will be blown up. However, I'm afraid that the airport's runways will need to be repaired. It's you. Chu Xianglong was startled. An intense feeling of gratitude toward Tan Xiu rose inside him. He simply couldn't imagine how serious the consequences and losses would be if all 5 time bombs were to explode here. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, all right, I've completed my mission. But just in case, your people at the airport should search again. I still have something to do, so I won't stay here. Can I trouble you to stay and help us search again, Mr. Tang? Asked Chu Xianglong quickly. I'm afraid that the bomb attack is only the first wave. After all, those are time bombs. Nobody knows if those extremists have installed other time bombs in other places. Ugh! Tan Xiu stared blankly and immediately felt that Chu Xianglong's words made sense. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and said, all right, then I'll help you search the entire airport. But your people don't need to follow me since my inspection method is different from yours. Chu Xianglong knew that Tan Xiu must have a special search method. Otherwise, it was absolutely impossible for an ordinary person to find so many time bombs in such a short time since he arrived at the airport. Please. Half an hour later, Tang Xiu searched the entire airport and finally determined that there was no other place in the airport where the time bomb was placed. In the lobby of Building A of the airport, Lu Changxi, who had just arrived, saw a gloomy Chu Xianglong. What's the situation, Chief Chu? Lu Changxi obviously knew Chu Xianglong before, so he asked straightforwardly. A time bomb exploded in Building B, but it didn't cause any casualties, said Chu Xianglong with a forced smile. Mr. Tang also found 4 time bombs on the runway, but they only damaged the runway and caused no casualties. Also, the first 3 time bombs we found have been put into a sealed explosive device by the EOD experts and caused no damage. Tan Xiu actually found 4 time bombs? Lu Changxi was shocked. He came here in such a short time, and he can even. Chu Xianglong interrupted him. With a look of deep admiration on his square face, he said, Mr. Tang didn't find 4 time bombs, Minister Lu. There were a total of 8 time bombs, and he found 6. The 3 time bombs taken away by the EOD experts were also found by Mr. Tang. Moreover, he didn't find them in one waiting hall but 2. Lu Changxi knew that Tan Xiu had a special ability, but he was still shocked speechless after hearing that Tan Xiu found 7 time bombs in one breath. Mr. Tang is back. A police officer at Chu Xianglong's side suddenly spoke. Immediately, everyone's eyes shifted to the direction where Tan Xiu came from. Lu Changxi dashed toward Tan Xiu and grabbed Tan Xiu's hands, gratefully saying, Thank you, Tan Xiu. Thank you very much. You're welcome, Chief Lu, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Tan Xiu, my thanks are sincere and from the bottom of my heart. Lu Changxi shook his head. If it weren't for you tonight, I'm afraid there would have been a lot of casualties in Shanghai. All the time bombs in the concert venue of the New World Center have been removed and all the pushpins with the virus have been cleaned up by us. Even Shi Biao and another extremist have been arrested by us. If it weren't for your phone call, and the explosion happened without anyone knowing, I'm afraid a lot of tourists and airport staff would have been killed. You're simply a savior. A savior? Upon hearing this, Tan Xiu nearly burst into laughter. However, although he was a bit mentally and physically exhausted tonight, and was faintly feeling tired now, he still felt very comfortable when he recalled that he had saved thousands of people. With a smile, Tan Xiu said, You're exaggerating, Chief Lu. I've just checked the entire airport again, and there's no more hidden security risks. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. I still have some private matters to deal with. I'll send someone to escort you, said Lu Changxi quickly. Don't bother. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, but I've been rushing all the way here, so I'll have to trouble Chief Lu to deal with the traffic violations and my abandoned car. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.